Chapter 115. I used to be on Mount Wutai. Stop, stop, stop. Li Shimin interrupted Zhang Feng speechlessly. His face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He thought that this time, Zhang Feng would tell him his background, but he didn't. It was still the same excuse. It wasn't that Zhang Feng didn't want to. But if he told him the truth, would he believe him? It would be strange if he believed him. What would he say? Oh, he would say that he came from thousands of years in the future? Then Zhang Feng wasn't that stupid. If he said that, Lao Li would be the first to think that he was crazy. If others knew, Zhang Feng could guarantee that he would be lying in Li Shimin's private museum and be dissected for research in less than a day. That was not impossible. What was Li Shimin's taboo? What he was most afraid of was supernatural powers. If he knew that his abilities were brought from the future, what would he say? That the Tang dynasty was destroyed 300 years later? After him, Li Ji became the emperor and married his concubine. Then his concubine, Li Ji's wife, became the first empress in the history of Wuxia? Who would believe that? No one would believe it. On the contrary, he would be treated as a monster and still couldn't escape the fate of being dissected for research. So, for his life. Before the system was activated, he could live safely. Zhang Feng decided that no matter who asked, he was the little Taoist priest on Mount Wutai. No one would believe it. Then go and find it. Anyway, there was no record of him in this world. It was useless to find it. Seeing that Zhang Feng was unwilling to say, Li Shimin didn't insist. He asked again in a serious voice, I don't know where you came from or what your purpose is, but you have to remember that this is the Tang dynasty, and you are also a Tang. That's enough. I don't know where you came from, and I don't know where you will go in the future, but at this moment, we are still friends, right? Zhang Feng was silent. Finally, he nodded. Yes. We're friends. Zhang Feng didn't know what he would do in the future, nor did he know what he would do in the future. But now, Lao Li was his friend. Lao Li was a friend who had accompanied him when he was the loneliest. No matter what I'm going to do in the future, you, old Li, are my friend. Zhang Feng seemed to feel that the atmosphere was a little heavy. He picked up the bowl of wine and gulped it down in big gulps. He choked so much that tears were rolling down his face. It was a lie to say that he wasn't lonely. Being a stranger in a foreign land, he had never had such a feeling before. However, ever since he had crossed over, this feeling of homesickness had become even stronger. The reason why he made good wine and delicacies was not for Lao Li and the others, but because he wanted to remind himself of the past. He was afraid. He was afraid that after he slept, all the memories that belonged to modern people would disappear without a trace. He was even afraid that everything that had happened in the past would turn into a dream. Assimilated into this era. Therefore, he was very lonely. He didn't want to have any interaction with this world. He was afraid that he would lose himself. In the end, when there was nothing left, he would forget the past, forget everything that had happened in the modern era. He was lonely. When he was at his loneliest and most helpless, Lao Li walked into his world. At first, when he saw Lao Li, he felt that Lao Li was a person with a story. Otherwise, why would he be so confused and helpless? In half a year, he could be said to be a lonely person who licked each other's wounds with Lao Li. Li Shimin patted Zhang Feng's shoulder. He also saw a trace of loneliness and sorrow in his eyes. He understood this feeling. Wei Zheng was silent. He was a smart person. That was why he chose to keep quiet. After a moment, Zhang Feng shook his head. Let's not talk about this. Let's talk about the things in front of us first. There are too many things. Let's start from the most straightforward part. As Zhang Feng spoke, he took out the notes that Lao Li had just given him and said, this kind of thing only exists in the government and rich businessmen when they make large transactions. But, what if our credit union collects all the gold, silver, and paper money, and then we change it into notes like this? Wei Jing frowned slightly. Are you trying to? That's right. Zhang Feng bowed. I know what you mean. I don't mean to change anything. Just like this note. It only exists in the places set by the government for use and exchange, and in some rich businessmen's businesses. But have you thought about it? If we change all the currencies in our businesses to this, what will happen? Wei Zheng was shocked. Li Shimin was also shocked. He looked at Zhang Feng quietly. Zhang Feng changed from his previous decadence. He smiled faintly and said, this kind of transaction only exists in your businesses. Whether it's medicinal herbs, cloth, fur, and other businesses, you can give them this kind of thing. After they get it, they will take it to your other businesses to exchange or buy it. It's a whole set of business processes without capital. And what we need to do is to link our technology with Zhangsun Wuji's. Let's start with the production of table salt. What do you think? Chapter 116. Silence. Silence. There was a deathly silence. Li Shimin thought that he was an expert in scheming. However, he did not know that Zhang Feng had dug a big hole for him from the very beginning. Genius? Genius? Could this express his opinion of Zhang Feng at this time? No. Because if Zhang Feng was really a businessman, or if the matter in the imperial court had been settled, he would definitely implement this idea as soon as possible. But, unfortunately, although he had the heart now, he also knew that although Zhang Feng did not say it, his heart was as clear as Ming Jing. During this period, because of the outbreak of the drought, a large number of people immediately rushed into Chang'an City to escape. They were just for a mouthful of food. But what could he do? In addition to providing relief to the disaster victims, he also had to deal with the civil officials in the imperial court, be careful about the punishment of the natural disaster, and deal with the financial shortage of the national treasury. Li Shimin suddenly felt very tired. Really tired. Li Shimin looked at Zhang Feng for a long time with a complicated expression. Brother Zhang Feng, I know what you are thinking. You want to use this method to completely stimulate the enthusiasm of the people and their hope for life. Your method is very good, but have you considered what will happen if you screw it up? This matter is not something that only the merchants can participate in. Li Shimin's eyes flickered. Do you know how many people's road to wealth will be blocked if this matter is exposed? Road to wealth? Zhang Feng smiled. Lao Li, I know what you are worried about, but have you ever thought that if this matter is successful, the people who will benefit will not be you or me? I am just a guide. I know what we are facing. You will have to face the opposition of your family, the exploitation of your uncles, and the others, but... Zhang Feng stared at Li Shimin with shining eyes and said, if you learn from the emperor, you will find that what you are doing is insignificant. Salt is your guiding light. I think, if His Majesty really isn't the kind of emperor that I said he was, or if he really doesn't have the courage, then just pretend that I didn't say anything today. Courage. You have given me a bolt from the blue. Li Shimin smiled bitterly. I know. But do you know that although this matter will let the officials in the imperial court taste the sweetness, do you know how many people will run on the cooperative you mentioned? If we provoke the emperor, then we will all die. The emperor's anger. Zhang Feng sighed slightly. This was the Tang dynasty. The feudal Tang dynasty. I remember that when I was traveling around the world, I heard a saying, water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize a boat. If you really want to make a fortune and protect yourself, I hope that you can send this saying to the Lord Zhangsun. The Lord Zhangsun will certainly present it to the emperor, and then the emperor will make a decision. Water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize a boat? Li Shimin was a little confused. Wei Zheng saw that the atmosphere was stifling. She didn't want Zhang Feng to make up a story for her, but it was actually true. She didn't want to make things awkward because of the emperor's current predicament. She smiled faintly and said, aren't we discussing how to get rich? Why is it getting more and more depressing? Brother Zhang Feng. Lao Li cares too much about his family. If he makes a mistake, it will lead to the destruction of the entire family. I also know that you want to help Lao Li. But this matter needs to be done slowly. That's true. Zhang Feng heard this and patted his head. The depressing feeling just now disappeared. He smiled and picked up the wine bowl again. I was too anxious just now. Lao Li was not there. We are true brothers, so I was a little anxious. Come, let's have a toast. Then, I'll tell you the whole process of this matter. Just take it as a joke. Li Shimon's eyes flashed. Then, he smiled bitterly. You scared me so much just now. Well, this matter needs to be taken slowly. At least wait until we have some connections in the court. Anyway, this way of making a fortune is not something that others can learn. Yes. As they spoke, the three of them laughed and laughed again. However, Wei Zheng and Li Shimon's faces faintly showed that they had something on their minds. Where were we talking about just now? Zhang Feng asked dizzily. He glanced around and saw the banknotes on the table. No, they were not called banknotes anymore. This thing became popular after the Song dynasty. Now, it was just a kind of thing that circulated between the government and merchants. It was also the origin of banknotes in the Song dynasty. It was obvious what kind of impact the prosperity of the Tang dynasty would have on the later generations. He was very grateful to this world, this Tang dynasty, and the people who created this thing. Although the banknotes were just a piece of paper now, there was only the seal of the government and the exchange merchant on it. There was nothing else. However, to Zhang Feng, this was a treasure that could make a fortune. Compared to the bulging belly of a 10-month pregnant woman, Zhang Feng was eager to walk the world with only a few banknotes. Zhang Feng picked up the banknotes and smiled mysteriously. We still have to get this thing out. Not only do we have to get it out, we also have to find people to publicize it and come up with a lot of coupons. This way, we can promote this thing in the fastest and safest way. Chapter 117. What kind of weird stuff is this? First it was a cooperative, and now it's a coupon? Do you think it's a game? Li Shimon was speechless. I feel like my IQ is not online when I'm with this kid. Where did all my wisdom go? Li Shimon slowly sorted out his thoughts, interrupting the eloquent Zhang Feng. You mean to say that this salt is only a test? If His Majesty approves, or tacitly approves, we can carry it out on a small scale? If the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Agriculture, and the Ministry of Works find out, we'll be beheaded. I said you're stupid, but you really can't think straight. Zhang Feng rolled his eyes at Li Shimon and said, didn't I say it before? What's Zhang Sun Wuji's role in this? He's the boss of the Ministry of Justice. As long as you cling to his thigh and drag him down, wouldn't that be perfect? Li Shimon's face darkened. You're urging one of his officials, the Minister of Justice, to do this in front of me? Just you wait, you'll be caned when you enter the imperial court. You're urging me to rope in his officials to do this business under His Majesty's nose, and he's the Minister of Justice at that. If His Majesty finds out, aren't you afraid of being caned? Li Shimon glared at Zhang Feng and asked. Zhang Feng waved his hand. Based on my observation of His Majesty, do you think His Majesty is like you? Ever since the Xuanwu Gate and the Wei River incident, the opposition to His Majesty in the imperial court and among the people has become stronger and stronger. During this period of time, their views have changed slightly. Do you think His Majesty doesn't want to establish his authority? He wants to. But he doesn't have a chance. Now that the Tang dynasty has just stabilized, what does the Tang dynasty need the most? What we need the most is economic recovery, so that the Tang dynasty can operate again. Only in this way can we ensure that the Tang dynasty stands tall. But now, the plague of locusts has stirred up a storm in the court. We can't hide it anymore. Although I don't know how Lao Li's servants leaked the news and what they said, I think His Majesty is up to something. Li Shimon was shocked. How could he have guessed it? Zhang Feng said again, do you know about the hunting of chickens, ducks, and pigs in Chang'an City? Li Shimon and Wei Zheng quickly nodded. Wei Zheng rubbed his chin. That incident caused a huge uproar in the city, but it ended abruptly. Who doesn't know? That's it. Why did the emperor end things so hastily? It was because of the opposition. Moreover, he also felt guilty. If there was no plague of locusts, wouldn't he be unable to stand up? So, he's waiting. Waiting for what? Wei Jing also felt that it was strange. Previously, he only thought that the emperor was exaggerating. But after learning about Longyo's situation and the countless insect eggs in the ground, Wei Jing also had some doubts, but he didn't dare to ask. As a subject, he didn't dare to guess the emperor's thoughts. However, at this time, Zhang Feng said it without any hesitation. He also wanted to hear what Zhang Feng knew. Li Shimin was also interested at this time. He wanted to know how much Zhang Feng had guessed. The emperor wants to take the opportunity to suppress the Confucian officials who are the most opposed to him. Li Shimin was shocked. He guessed it all right. How did Zhang Feng guess it? Could it be that he observed it in the market? But, wasn't this a little too scary? But, this was no longer important. This person must be used by me, Li Shimin. With him, I'll definitely get twice the result with half the effort. Just as Li Shimin was immersed in endless emotions, Wei Zheng was also shocked. Since he followed the emperor to this small tavern, what kind of information came out from here that was useless? What kind of thing didn't shock the world? Even Tubo and other countries were schemed against by Zhang Feng. They even cheated 40 million taels of gold from Tubo. This time, they accidentally found this kind of salt. Although in Zhang Feng's eyes, this thing was small and not enough to arouse his interest, Wei Zheng knew that this thing would definitely cause a bloody storm if it was placed in the Tang dynasty. Why did Tubo and other countries covet Longyu Road? Why did the Tang dynasty send a large number of troops to guard Longyu Road? Did they have nothing to do? Or was that place rich? None of them. That place was either a desert or a wasteland. It was because there were salt mines that controlled the western region and half of the Tang dynasty. They also needed to eat salt. Therefore, no matter what, Longyu Road must be controlled by the Tang dynasty. This was equivalent to choking the throat of the surrounding countries. But once this salt came out, once the news spread out, Wei Jing didn't dare to think about it. He didn't want to think about it. Then, it would definitely be a bloody storm. And at this time, if the gold, silver and other things were exchanged for this piece of paper, then, it didn't mean that the Tang dynasty would seize the money of the people in the world in a short time. They only needed a piece of paper to control the surrounding economy. A layer of fine white hair appeared on Wei Zheng's forehead. Too vicious. Damn it. This Zhang Feng was really King inhumane. Chapter 118. You mean to say that you want the Tang dynasty to control all the finance of the surrounding countries in the hands of the government? Wei Zheng said in a trembling voice. Smart. Zhang Feng, after spending a lot of effort, finally managed to establish the hegemonic financial system of the United States in this prosperous era of the Tang dynasty. Salt was the key to establishing the hegemonic financial system of America. Although he could have done the same in the past by controlling food and other items, it was not a long-term solution. Moreover, although food was good, it was not easy to store. However, gold and silver were different. Even at this time, Li Shimin, who was slow to react, was shocked by this plan. This was 2F** King crazy, 2F** King crazy, Li Shimin was going crazy. He cursed in his heart. If he had thought of this earlier, he would not have been so aggrieved. The Tang dynasty would have become the world's hegemon long ago. But it was not too late now. At this time, Wei Zheng and Li Shimin were both shocked. When he looked at Zhang Feng, he was already in awe. Brother Zhang Feng, what are you thinking in that head of yours? So vicious. No. This is the way to rule a country. How did you know? Don't tell me that you learned this on Mount Wutai. Li Shimin grabbed Zhang Feng's hand excitedly. He almost bowed down to him. Zhang Feng looked at Li Shimin's eyes. He had goosebumps all over his body. He almost spat out the wine he had just drunk. I say. Lao Li. You understand this, but can we not be gay? I'm a man. Although Li Shimin did not know what gay was, he understood the last sentence. I'll remember what you said. I'll go back and find you the most beautiful woman in the world. Do you want a who woman? Or tell me, which family's daughter do you like? Lao Li, I'll go and propose marriage for you. Don't. Lao Tzu wants to find it himself. Zhang Feng almost wanted to say yes, but when he thought of their taste, he stopped. We have to find it ourselves. Speaking of which, although your plan is wonderful, have you ever thought that if one part of the plan goes wrong, you'll lose everything? Furthermore, you didn't even mention where we are. Isn't this a lack of consideration? In the end, it was Wei Zheng who hit the nail on the head. Zhang Feng patted Li Shimin's shoulder. Look at old Wei, you have to learn from him. That brain of his was calm. I've always wondered how you, Lao Li, managed to preserve your family's business until now when you're so easily startled. About that. Before Li Shimin became anxious, Zhang Feng went straight to the point. Salt is a guide, and the two of you are also guides. As guides, you just need to lure Zhangsun Wuji into the water, and you just need to wait to collect the money. At this time, it is national politics. If you participate in it, then what do you think? If you don't want to, Zhangsun and the emperor will turn a blind eye to it, but what about the ministers in the court? Will those guys who are blocked from making money let you go? As soon as he said this, Li Shimin and Wei Jing couldn't help but feel a chill down their spines. What they had to face was the 5 surnames and 7 hopes. How could this be solved with just a simple word? Then, Brother Zhang, what's your opinion? Li Shimin cupped his hands with a dignified expression. He no longer had the playful smile from before. We have to start from this piece of paper. Zhang Feng picked up the note on the table and said, you can get the approval document from Zhangsun for this thing. It's the proof that the government contracted the salt smelting industry. Then, this thing will depend on how you manage it. I still think that you should learn from Long Yu. Also, I've already said it before, so I won't say more now. Figure it out yourself. When it comes to finding people, you must find those honest people from the Zhuang family, as well as those who are slaves. As long as you pay to help them regain their commoner status, help them buy a family property, and then lend them the settlement fee, so that they can have the capital to settle down. At this time, the proof that you give them money will become their slave contract. And it will be a proof that they are willing to sell their lives. Think about it, how can you make them sell their lives? How can you buy their hearts? I don't need to teach you this, right? At this time, the matter is half done. At this time, you can deduct the interest from the money you lent them from their monthly wages. Then, you can give them food, meat, and bills in place of silver and copper coins. Let them take these things to your shops and exchange them for daily necessities or money and food. Here's the point. Zhang Feng coughed, revealing his white teeth. At this time, think about it, your cycle will begin. The money will be in your pockets. Although the notes you pay can be exchanged for money, in the process, won't it promote your other businesses again? And there must be a reward and punishment system. Those who do it quickly and perform well. Anyway, you have a lot of salt. Give them half a caddy of salt, and they will be grateful. Won't they brag about it? In this way, there will be more and more people. Now, the business that everyone wants to avoid has become a delicious cake. Do you think that you won't make a lot of money? After Zhang Feng finished speaking, he looked mysteriously at Li Shimin and Wei Zheng, who seemed to have been hit with the pause button, and asked. It depends on whether you have the guts or not. It depends on whether your guts are big enough. How about this business? Chapter 119. Li Shimin had never thought of this before. A problem that had troubled everyone for hundreds of years was easily resolved by a small tavern shopkeeper on the table in an instant. Was he really a god? This plan, although it seemed crazy. However, if Li Shimin came forward, then all of this would not be a problem at all. On the contrary, it would fill his tight treasury with real wealth. However, there was still a problem. Li Shimin could not help but ask, but if this is the case, what will happen if the spies from Tubo and other countries find out? The salt that we sell to Tubo and other countries is the same as before, 3 strings of money for 2 caddies. If they find out at this time, what will happen? Once we produce this salt, what will the price be? The people still can't afford it. Can't afford it? Are you kidding? Zhang Feng stared at Li Shimin. Are you stupid? I said, the people who work for you can give it to you for free. Not only can you give the salt for free, you can give anything for free. Including money, that's how we can form a cooperative. In this way, will the people who take the money be rash? Once they take the money, they have to repay the debt, and with this money, they can get endless food and daily necessities. In this way, people will have something to look forward to. Of course, this matter of borrowing money, leave it to the authorities. Don't touch it at all. Why? Then, how can I make money? Li Shimin was dumbfounded again. Zhang Feng said with anger and laughter, I'll give you a piece of advice. You have to make money, but it has to be limited to your salt mine and your business model. As for borrowing money, if you touch it, you will be robbing money from the authorities. Have you thought about the consequences? Also, what if people borrow money and don't return it to you? What will you do? Won't you still have to report it to the authorities? So, you have to remember my advice. The key to this cooperative is to stand by the side of the government. You just have to let them worry about money. You just have to focus on making money. When the time comes, even if someone doesn't like you, they will have to look at what you have done, right? When they see that you only care about your own business, who would have nothing to do with you? When the time comes, if you want to show up, Zhang Sun Wuji will do it for you. You just have to remember one thing. Leave the matter of money to the authorities. At most, you just have to provide manpower. Run errands and let people know that you are working for the authorities. That way, no one can do anything to you. Genius. Damn it. Motherf asterisk Kerr, he was a natural-born talent in the business world. However, when the 2 astute people thought about what he said, they suddenly realized that this was the way to rule a country. This was much better than using a knife to cut people, or sending millions of soldiers to attack others. This was what it meant to be an effortless victory. Lao Tzu will hold your money in his hands. Don't you dare touch it. Lao Tzu will cut you off tomorrow. Wonderful. F***ck. Li Shimin was so excited that he was going crazy. However, Wei Jing poured cold water on him again. You only mentioned the Tang dynasty, but you didn't say what the price of the salt would be. The price of the salt is the government's business. It's none of your business. But I suggest that the price of the salt be lowered. At least 10 copper coins per caddy. That way, we can ensure that the people of the Tang dynasty are strong and not weak like chickens. Also, what if Tubo and other places want this salt? Dream on. Wasn't the salt exported by the Tang dynasty 300 strings of cash per caddy? Then give them 100 strings of cash per caddy. It's best to poison them to death. Wouldn't that be perfect? You're really a genius. If someone is your enemy, it's really unbearable to watch. Li Shimin gave him a thumbs up speechlessly. However, his voice changed. Long Yu Dao's salt will run out sooner or later. If the whole world comes to buy salt, what should we do? Although our Tang Empire has gained a lot in the short term, this is also a crisis. What should we do if we dig all the salt out? That's right, Lin Mingya said with a frown. Zhang Feng was amused when he heard that. Lao Li. You still don't understand the cooperative. Are the caravans from other countries fools? You can trade too. You can buy salt from other countries at a low price or barter for it. You can collect the difference and use it to fill the salt mines in Longyu. Isn't that perfect? You didn't think of that? You're a merchant. Have you forgotten what you're supposed to do? Do you want to piss off those foreign businessmen who have worked with you? Zhang Feng didn't wait for Li Shimin to finish and continued, not only salt, but also grain from Tubo that I mentioned before. You can exchange it with other things. Grain is dead and will be damaged. However, you can mortgage it to the farmers. This will stimulate them to plant and pay back the grain next year. Not only that, you can also use the grain to exchange for resources from other countries. Have you forgotten that this is a cost-free trade? I've been talking about it for months, haven't I? Have you forgotten? Li Shimin was severely despised again. However, this time, he was wholeheartedly convinced. He had received too many things this time. He was completely dumbfounded. He hurriedly got up and gave a fist salute. Sorry for disturbing you today. I'm a little dizzy. I need to go back and digest. Li Shimin left in a hurry as he spoke. However, when he reached the door, Zhang Feng seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly asked, Hey! Lao Li, is there anyone in the clan who is better than Empress Xiao of the previous dynasty? He knew that this kid was in love. He even dared to hit him on the head? Li Shimin's legs trembled. He hurriedly slipped away without looking back. Sorry for disturbing you. Goodbye. Chapter 120. They turned 2 streets away. Li Shimin remembered that he came here to ask for a few jars of wine. However, he could not help but smile bitterly when he looked behind him. Wei Jing covered his mouth and snickered from time to time, which made Li Shimin speechless. However, he could not stop him. At this moment, Li Shimin turned around. Wei Jing mentioned again, Your Majesty, this old subject thinks that if the princess were to marry him, it would be a wonderful thing. Furthermore, this old official has observed that this brat Zhang Feng has truly fallen in love with a woman. This old official has carefully thought about it. In the palace, the princess of Xiang City seems to be 17 years old. Enough. Li Shimin glared at Wei Jing coldly. I call him brother now. If I marry my daughter to him, how should I address him? Zhang Feng is really picky. Li Shimin sighed meaningfully. Then, he changed the topic and said, What do you think of today's meeting, Prime Minister Wei? Li Shimin decided not to leave. He turned into a dead end with Wei Jing. At the entrance of the alley, there were layers of imperial guards in linen clothes guarding the entrance. The two of them squatted in the box and chatted about it. Wei Jing pondered seriously for a long time. Then, he came up with 4 words. The future is promising. Although it was just these 4 words, Li Shimin's heart was put at ease. In the past, no matter what he did, Wei Jing would jump out to criticize him. However, this time, it was the first time Wei Jing was so supportive. Your Majesty, this old subject thinks that this method is feasible. Oh. Li Shimin was shocked again. Why? Your Majesty, think about it. The matter with Tubo is not over yet. However, there is still Tuyuhun, who is watching from the sidelines. These 2 countries will definitely offer us an endless amount of food. Although half of the food could alleviate the problem of insufficient food and the disaster victims, what about the other half? Are we just going to let him rot? Do you remember the plague of locusts? This was a good time to stock up on grain. Not only that, we can also take the surplus to the grassland to exchange for cattle, sheep, and horses. Cattle, sheep, and other livestock can be lent to the people to raise. We can keep chickens, ducks, and geese to deal with locusts. They can also lay eggs. Isn't this the best of 3? Li Shimin listened with great interest. Prime Minister Wei, you have only met Zhang Feng a few times. Why do I feel that you have changed? His tone is exactly the same as little shopkeeper Zhang Feng's. Li Shimin shook his head. However, at this time, I must have a foolproof plan. Otherwise, I won't be at ease. Moreover, you also know that once this matter is carried out, there is no possibility of retreat. Li Shimin thought about a lot of things. This was not a business deal that was only seen by businessmen. This was a fight for food. Snatching food from the mouths of the 5 surnames and 7 Wangs. If he succeeded, all the power of the Tang dynasty would be in his hands. But if he failed, the previous dynasty was a good example. Li Shimin did not want this to happen. Wei Zheng fell silent. What the emperor was worried about, was he not the same? Your Majesty, I think that Zhang Feng's actions are unreasonable, but they are not methodical. If we do as he says, there may be unexpected results. If it is possible, why don't we ask Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui, and Zhang Sun to discuss it? If it is possible, we can settle this matter today. After all, the plague of locusts waits for no one. Hearing this, Li Shimin's heart sank. This matter was really as Wei Zheng said. His plan was very important. The plague of locusts would definitely be an opportunity to take down the 5 surnames and 7 Wangs in the court and suppress them. However, the plague of locusts could not be delayed. If there was a slight hesitation, the Tang dynasty would be in danger when the plague of locusts broke out. Prime Minister Wei, has the thing I secretly arranged in Longyu Road sent back any news? No. Wei Zheng sighed deeply. Since Your Majesty issued a secret edict that day to let me personally supervise the chicken and duck army in Longyu Road, I and Marquis Lu made use of the garrison in Longyu Road and secretly made arrangements in various places in Longyu Road. Although many people and the chicken and duck army participated in it, I am still very worried. This plague of locusts seems to be able to survive this year, but next year, we may not be so lucky. Oh. Li Shimin was stunned when he heard this. He asked, why do you say so? When the people from the Imperial Astronomer were supervising Longyu Road, Qing Chimo had been following them. Although that kid is careless, he is still thoughtful. The people from the Imperial Astronomer are worried that there may be less snow this winter, but next year, that is when the plague of locusts that Zhang Feng said will really break out. What? Why didn't you say so earlier? Li Shimin was shocked. Previously, although Zhang Feng said that the plague of locusts would break out this year, Li Shimin had always thought that it would break out this year. But now that June had already appeared, the locusts' eggs in the fields were almost exhausted. How could there be a plague of locusts? But now, Li Shimin finally understood. The plague of locusts that Zhang Feng mentioned was next year. It was the 3rd year of Zhengguan. Chapter 121. Night quietly shrouded the imperial palace. Although the highest institution of the Tang dynasty was shrouded in darkness, it still exuded a mysterious aura. The Taiji Palace was brightly lit by lanterns. Teams of golden guards in golden armor surrounded the palace. Their eyes were terrifyingly cold, as if they would kill a mouse if they found it. In the depths of the Taiji Palace, pairs of cold eyes were also scanning the palace in the dark. They were the soldiers of Zhou Qianyo's guards, Qing Yaojin's personal guards. Behind the layers of protection, the atmosphere in the Taiji Palace was so intense that it was almost about to be overturned. Qing Yaojin's face was red with anger. He raised the wine jar and cursed. He could not even straighten his tongue. Motherf ****, Zhang Feng's temper is exactly the same as mine. Your Majesty, please issue an imperial edict. I guarantee that I will train him to be obedient in a month. Come on, Black Yak. His little chick is yours. In less than 3 days, you can tear him apart. Wei Zheng's face darkened as he said, I've already told you about this matter. The specific situation is as follows. Now, Zhang Feng's intention and His Majesty's intention is to use Du Ruhui to settle this matter before the Tufan envoys arrive. At the very least, gather all the merchants in Cheng and city and discuss it. Du Ruhui glared at Wei Zheng and muttered, why me? Isn't Zhang Sun an expert in this? Why are you even stupider than Old Black? Zhang Sun Wuji rolled his eyes fiercely. That little brother Zhang Feng has seen me before. If I go now, we'll all be finished. If I go, you'll have to be prepared for him to guess our identities. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Qing Yaojin grabbed his hair anxiously. The scalp and fleece shook Fang Xuanling's wine bowl, causing Fang Xianling to frown. But he didn't dare to say anything. When old Qing opened his mouth, it was a bloody mouth. His face was guaranteed to be covered in saliva. I also agree that Lai Guogong is good at a certain segment, but it's not enough. If Duke Liang were to accompany him. Li Shimon's eyes lit up. Permission granted. Without waiting for Fang Xianling to speak, Li Shimon immediately made the decision. Fang Xianling choked and glared at Qing Yaojin until he wanted to hit him. My beloved subjects, do you know what this means if we succeed? That's what it means to have the whole world under our control. All the money in the world is under the control of the Tang dynasty. Even the Qin Emperor and the Han Emperor have never achieved such a feat. Li Shimon was so excited that his lips were trembling. The eyes of the others were also shining at this time. Everyone here was a founding hero of the Tang dynasty. Who didn't want the provinces and cities of the Tang dynasty to become Yongchang? Who didn't want the Tang dynasty to become famous in the world under their hands? After listening to Li Shimon and Wei Zhang's narration, everyone was a little hesitant at first, but after 4 hours of discussion, they finally understood the cause and effect. They were even more shocked by Zhang Feng's wisdom. He had been digging a hole from the beginning. He had dug a hole so big that he had dug a hole for the whole world. Such a talent was still working in a small tavern as a shopkeeper who didn't even have a single customer. What was this? This was an insult to the Tang dynasty. That was why Qing Yaojin was so angry that he wanted to kidnap Zhang Feng. Now, after the discussion of the matter was settled, Li Shimon hesitated for a while before asking again, Dear officials, although you and I are monarchs and ministers, you also watched Qingxian and the other children grow up. When everyone heard this, they immediately perked up. Was the emperor finally going to send the crown prince to Zhang Feng's place? Li Shimon said slowly. In the court, I always felt that Qingke, Ji, and Quan, studies were a little neglected. Moreover, with the current teaching standards in the palace. Does the emperor want to send them to Zhang Feng's place? Wei Zhang's heart was the same as Ming Jing's. No one was stupid. This was the second time the emperor had said this. Moreover, he had said it at this time. If that kind of person couldn't think of it, then he should really pack up his things and go back to his hometown to retire. That's right. Li Shimon saw that Wei Zhang had spoken openly. He said with some hesitation, I'm just worried that with the temperament of these children, if they're not careful and blurt it out, then it won't be pretty. That's easy to handle. Although that child, Chumo, is usually carefree, if Lao Tzu personally instructs him, he will definitely protect the crown prince properly. Before. Get lost. Old Hey, with your petty thoughts, you're Chumo. Chu Mo, with his big mouth, wouldn't even wait for 30,000 bottles of wine before he spilled everything, including his grandfather's name. And you're Chumo. Your Majesty, let Chong go. After all, Chong is familiar with Qingxian and the others. Naturally, he will listen to Chong. Get lost. Zhang Sun, you old thief, you're *king abusing your position for personal gain. Qing Yaojin's face and neck were red as he roared. Li Shimon furrowed his brows as he roared. Finally, Li Shimon had enough and exploded. Shut up, all of you. Chapter 122. Hearing that, everyone's necks shrank. They hurriedly quieted down and kept quiet out of fear. How could Li Shimon not know what they were thinking? This was where he was hesitant. If he let Qingxian and the others go, then these old fellows would annoy him to death. Last time, he had only mentioned it slightly, and in the end, he had caused a whole lot of trouble. They only stopped when he personally told them to drop the matter. This time, Li Shimon was really moved. Not to mention Zhang Feng's unfathomable knowledge, he was very moved by his ability to govern the country. If not for his status, he would have bowed his head and kowtowed long ago. However, this was such a serious matter. What had these fools done to make it look like? Wei Zheng was also pointing at them with righteous indignation. His fingers were trembling. Look at all of you. Are you still a subject? Is there anyone like you? I've decided. As he spoke, Wei Zheng turned to look at Li Shimin and kowtowed. Your Majesty, although I haven't seen Brother Zhang Feng last time, he gave me such a high evaluation. This subject is ashamed. So this old subject has decided that if your Majesty really wants the Crown Prince and the others to go, this old subject is willing to accompany them. Shameless. Too shameless. Everyone stared at Wei Zheng with disdain. However, Wei Zheng still straightened his back and looked like he was ready to die. Looking at him, Li Shimin felt a toothache. Your Majesty, you are the ruler of a country. You have concerns, but I, Wei Zheng, have none. As a subject, I should share your Majesty's worries. This old subject is bold enough to personally go and take care of the Crown Prince and the others' daily lives. This is just to protect the Crown Prince and ensure that Brother Zhang Feng doesn't have a trace of suspicion. No. Wei Zheng, you shameless old man. So this is where you dug your hole. Your Majesty, if that's the case, I, Old Sheng, will go too. Anyway, I, Old Sheng, am familiar with Brother Zhang Feng. It's easier with more people. Your Majesty, you mustn't. We can't be careless about this matter. If the ministers in the imperial court find out about this, they might make trouble for no reason. Fang Xianling and Du Ruhui had never seen Zhang Feng before. They had only heard of him, but now that they saw the ugliness of these people, they were dumbfounded. He was dumbfounded. Was this the same Wei Zheng who was so awesome? Was this still the fearless Black Sheng? Was this still the smiling tiger, the slippery Zhangsun Wuji? Oh my God! Had the world gone mad? Although they had never met Zhang Feng before, these two fellows were adamant that they were not allowed to go. In addition, the argument between Qing Yaojin and the other two made the veins on Li Shimin's face pop out. Get lost. Get out of my sight. Let's talk about this later. Li Shimin was furious. Everyone could only leave with their tails between their legs. However, everyone was especially concerned about this matter. The emperor didn't refuse, but he also didn't agree. That meant, there was a chance. On the way out of the palace, the five of them each had their own thoughts. They were all thinking about how they could stuff their precious son into it. Zhang Feng was a big treasure. Although they all knew that their son could not reach Zhang Feng's level, if he could learn 30%, or even 10%, then their family would be able to bring glory to their family. At the very least, it would allow their family to prosper for a few more generations. Of course, Fang Xianling and Du Ruhui didn't talk much when they arrived, but after years of cooperation, they could read each other's minds from their eyes. Then, they glanced at Qing Yaojin, who was swaying on his horse while drinking wine and singing a tune. They urged the sedan bearers to overtake Qing Yaojin, then blocked Qing Yaojin's path with smiles. Lord Qing, let's go. I've prepared a jar of good Indian wine. It's still early, why don't we move? Although Qing Yaojin was careless and drunk, his thoughts were as clear as a mirror. He knew what was going on with just a little thought. He laughed and said, all right. Lead the way. Fang Xianling abandoned his sedan and joined Qing Yaojin in Du Ruhui's sedan. Although it was a little crowded, Fang Xianling didn't mind at this time. He even endured the strong stench of Qing Yaojin's feet. Old Black. How many years has it been since we rode in a carriage together? Du Ruhui stroked his white beard. Although it tugged from time to time with the jolting of the sedan, he still stroked it habitually to hide his nervousness. I have a bad memory. It was probably when we went to Hanggu Pass together when His Majesty was still the King of Qin. It was too long ago. Seeing that Qing Yaojin remembered, they looked at each other and said, Old Black, I want to discuss something with you. What do you think? Qing Yaojin raised his broom-like eyebrows. It's about your boys, right? I don't think there's a chance this time. Qing Yaojin pretended to sigh and said, His Majesty is hesitating. Even I can see it. Can't you too see it? How could Fong and do not think about what Xing Yaojin said? But what could they do now? Now, it was the critical moment. If they didn't do anything, wouldn't the younger generation benefit from Zhang Feng, who was also very capable? How could they do that? However, at this moment, Xing Yaojin smiled slyly and said, "Actually, I think His Majesty has made up his mind this time, but he needs an opportunity. Only then can His Majesty make up his mind." The two were stunned and asked hurriedly, "What opportunity?" Chapter 123. At this time, the sky was still dark. The thick fog shrouded the imperial city, and the sound of the evening drum and morning bell could be heard. The officials, dressed in various robes and holding white jade tablets, stepped on the drums and passed through 3 checkpoints before slowly appearing in the political announcement hall. Today, Zhang Sun Wuji came earlier than usual. When the crowd entered the political announcement hall, Wei Zheng was already sleeping with his eyes closed. Even the noise of the crowd did not have a trace of objection or reprimand. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. In the past, if the crowd was so noisy, they would have been scolded by Wei Zheng. How could he be so easy to talk to? Just as the crowd was talking, suddenly, a light flashed through the door behind them. Then, Xiao Gizi shouted at the top of his voice. "His Majesty has arrived." The crowd hurriedly tidied their clothes and then knelt on the ground. "Welcome, Your Majesty." As the voice fell, Li Shimin, dressed in a yellow dragon robe, walked into the crowd's sight with majestic steps. Before they could sit down, Li Shimin waved his sleeve. "Rise." The officials stood up. But at this time, the frown of the crowd became deeper and deeper. Something was wrong. In today's morning court, from Zhang Sun Wuji to Wei Zheng to the emperor, there was something wrong everywhere. At this time, Li Shimin could not wait for the crowd to speak, so he said directly, "Since the founding of the Tang dynasty has been suffering from the flames of war. Then, we experienced the Wei River and the Xieli incident. I have been looking for a chance to let the Tang dynasty have a breather. But recently, Longyu Road has encountered a rare drought. You all know about this." Li Shimin's voice paused, but the corner of his eyes paused for a second among the civil officials. Seeing that they just lowered their heads to listen, he could not help but say again, "But God has blessed the Tang dynasty with a wonderful method to solve the drought in Longyu Road and help friends to establish supreme friendship. This is the gospel to stabilize the Tang dynasty." Emperor. At this moment, among the civil officials, there was a minister from the imperial censorate who reported, "Your Majesty, this humble subject has a memorial." The corners of Li Shimin's mouth revealed a smile that no one could understand. "Speak." "Regarding this matter, we have to start from the Tubo envoy. This humble subject heard that the emperor received 45 million taels of gold in exchange for resources to help Tubo deal with the drought. This is really helping the people of Tubo rise in popularity, Lord Sun." Zhang Sun Wuji calmly interrupted the speaker and said, "Do you mean that His Majesty shouldn't have given it to Tubo? Do you really want to see Tubo's army besieging the city?" Zhang Sun's words made Sun Qian's heart tremble, but he still stiffened his neck and said, "Lord Zhang Sun, I heard that you were the one who proposed this." The old man only felt that this matter was too thoughtless. "May I ask, Lord Zhang Sun, how do you plan to use this money? Are you going to grind it into powder and distribute it to the disaster victims, or are you going to exchange it for food in Tubo, in?" "Your Majesty, this old subject has a memorial to report." At this moment, another Confucian official from the minister's mansion bowed and interrupted Sun Qian, saying, "Your Majesty, this minister is the minister. At this time, my cave is also suffering from a drought. My Shandong gentry has been using the power of the entire clan to help the disaster victims." "Then, what do you mean?" Li Shimin did not even raise his eyelids as he asked indifferently. The old man with a head full of white hair and some balding said tremblingly, "Now, the drought in Longyu has stopped, and this old subject knows that there is still food left. This old subject is bold enough to request for relief for the disaster victims of Shandong. Old thing. There is food. But that is the military supplies of my Longyu garrison. You dare to have any ideas about this? Do you think that I, old Cheng, am heir? Qing Yaojin exploded. These old things usually can't do anything, but now, when it comes to food, they don't even bat an eyelid. There is a drought in Shandong, but that drought can be suppressed as long as there is good irrigation. It is not as serious as you say it is. If that were the case, the emperor would have sent people over long ago. Do you still need to nag? Qing Yaojin did not dare to say the rest. This was the imperial court, so he could only criticize in his heart. As soon as Qing Yaojin's words fell, the military general's side exploded in an instant. You old bastard. As far as I know, all the land in Shandong is monopolized by the Shandong gentry. Now that there is a slight drought, you don't think of a solution, but the first thing you think of is benefits? Damn it. How dare you fight for the food of hundreds of thousands of soldiers in Lao Tzu's army? If it weren't for us defending the country with our lives, would you still be able to plot against each other so peacefully? You would have become a Turkic chamber pot long ago. In an instant. The civil officials also exploded. Vulgar. How can there be such a vulgar person in the imperial court of the Tang dynasty? Your Majesty, this person should be beheaded. Your Majesty, that old thief Yuchi has evil intentions. He is cursing Your Majesty and wants to destroy the country. Your Majesty, if we don't kill Yuchi, we won't be able to convince the world. Enough. At this moment, Wei Zheng, who had been silent all this time, shouted coldly. I, Wei Zheng, would like to ask, where is this place? This is the imperial court of the Tang dynasty, not a place for you to make a scene. His Majesty hasn't said a word, and you want to convict him of murder? Are you trying to take matters into your own hands? Chapter 124. Li Shimin had known about it for a long time, and he was certain that the reason why this matter did not break out before was because someone was holding back a big move. But he never expected that. The nobles of Shandong would come out. Over the years, because of some things, Li Shimin had always turned a blind eye to the nobles of Shandong. But now, Li Shimin waved his hand casually. I know about what happened in Shandong. Yesterday, the Minister of Agriculture handed me a memorial saying that the drought in Shandong was caused by your improper management. The taxes of Shandong have been reduced every year. I don't believe that the nobles of Shandong can't even afford this little bit of food. If no one dies in this matter, I won't ask about it. But if something happens, I will investigate it to the end. This was the first time. Li Shimin felt extremely comfortable. The suppression of the Shandong landlords, especially after the Wei River Alliance, caused the landlords of Shandong to jump up and down. Especially before, the matter of the chickens and ducks was also caused by them. Li Shimin also wanted to use this matter to suppress the landlords of Shandong. However, he had been worried. It was not until he met Zhang Feng yesterday and heard what Zhang Feng said that Li Shimin made up his mind to rectify the situation. Zhang Feng was right. The imperial power of the world was in his hands. He looked at the civil officials below, who belonged to the nobles of Shandong, and saw a large number of them kneeling with red faces. Li Shimin got up and said casually, the border is the gateway of the Tang dynasty. If there are no soldiers guarding the country and deterring the foreign tribes, don't you think that the people of Tubo will do this? Back then, you didn't know anything about the drought in Longyu. Now that the epidemic has passed, you want to fight for things, even the food of the soldiers at the border? When the nobles of Shandong heard this, their expressions changed drastically. Your Majesty. I'm innocent. I'm doing this for the sake of the Tang dynasty. The drought in our caves has been spreading. Because of the incident in Longyu, we could only grit our teeth and bear with it. But now, the nobles of Shandong are about to run out of food. We have to report it. There are no wars at the border now. Why don't we reduce the expenditure of the soldiers? Relief for the victims is the foundation of the country. Your Majesty has reached an agreement with Tubo and signed an agreement with the Turks. We think that although the border is important, we don't need to feed a group of boorish people. Let them go home and farm. What the Tang dynasty needs now is world peace. Damn it. Qing Yaojin, Yuqi Jingda, and the other generals. They rolled up their sleeves. Li Shimon's expression was also gloomy. Very well. Then, Lord Wang, I'll leave this matter to you. Dismiss the soldiers and guard the borders of the country. If you can guard the Tang dynasty for a year, I'll dismiss all the soldiers of the Tang dynasty. How about that? The old bald official, who was crying the most miserably, stopped abruptly. Your Majesty. This matter. I'm a scholar. I don't understand the actions of those boorish people. Old man. Li Shimon's sleeve was also angry. I've already given the order. Do you think it's child's play? You keep saying that they're boorish people, so I'll send you there now. We'd like to see if the pen in your hands and the principles you speak of can make the Turks submit. This matter is not discussed anymore. Shao Gizi, immediately write an edict for the garrison of Yuzhou and Longyu to withdraw and give up the border. Let Lord Wang arrange for men to guard the border. If there's a loss, all 9 generations will be executed. Your Majesty. What if Lord Wang manages to guard the border? Qing Yaojin asked as he looked at the ashen-faced nobles of Shandong with a half-smile. Li Shimon smiled coldly. If he manages to guard the border, I'll grant him 10 years of tax exemption in Shandong. I'll agree to all his demands. When they heard that and saw Shao Gizi stamp the imperial edict with the seal, most of the nobles of Shandong fainted. The generals and the others burst into laughter. However, they also knew that there was a reason for this. The defenders would still be them. The emperor was only asking them to guard the border. This explained a lot of things. Would they dare to go? Of course not. The emperor was determined to get rid of them. Then, Li Shimon said, yesterday, I came across a method by chance. Wei Zheng, tell me about it. This subject obeys. Wei Zheng accepted the order and then gave a simplified and systematic description of the salt and the cooperative that Zhang Feng mentioned. This time, more than half of the nobles of Shandong fainted again. If they had not coveted the money just now, such a lucrative job would have been theirs. Now, not only did they lose their wives, but they also angered the emperor. They were in trouble. However, at this time, no matter how the nobles of Shandong begged and swore to take on this task to atone for their sins, Li Shimon did not even look at them. What Li Shimon was worried about did not happen. The ministers in the court were all in favor of this novel and seemingly effective way to stimulate the economy. Li Shimon felt good. He waved his hand and said, Zhang Sun Wuji, Du Ruhui, and Fang Xianling. This subject obeys. I order you to do your best to test this in Chang'an. I want to see results within a month. This subject obeys. Chapter 125. After dealing with the affairs of the imperial court, Li Shimon stayed behind alone, which scared Wei Zheng, Zhang Sun Wuji, and the others. This time, Li Shimon was in a particularly good mood. A banquet was held in the imperial garden to entertain everyone. But everyone's heart was as clear as a mirror. There was an important matter to discuss. Sure enough. After 3 rounds of wine, Li Shimon looked at the lush scenery in the imperial garden and said, this matter has been discussed, but regarding the banknotes that little brother Zhang Feng mentioned, we still need to wait for Shang Jue. How do you think we should deal with the banknotes? Your Majesty, I didn't sleep last night and thought of an idea. Fang Xianling shook his beard to prevent the north wind from blowing onto the dishes on the table. He said, I think that the large banknotes we use now are all made by the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Appointments. These banknotes only circulate in the hands of merchants and a small number of people. I think that if we improve it slightly, we might have an unexpected effect. Fang Xuanling's words made Li Shimon's eyes light up. He asked, continue. Your Majesty. The banknotes we use now have a minimum denomination of 1,000 taels of silver and up to 10,000 taels of gold. But for ordinary people or merchants, they don't circulate well. The currency that circulates in the market is basically paper money. If we make the banknotes smaller, maybe it will work. Wei Zheng frowned and asked, but Lord Feng, Zhang Feng said yesterday that the banknotes are not effective. How can we make them into a currency that circulates throughout the country and even the world? How to replace gold and silver is the key. That's the problem. Feng Xianling sighed and said, but last night, when I was looking at Zhang Feng's calligraphy and paintings, I suddenly had an idea and drew a few banknotes as a blueprint. Please take a look, Your Majesty. Your Majesty. As he spoke, Feng Xianling carefully took out a piece of paper from his bosom, which was densely covered in ink. He unfolded it and placed it in front of Li Shimin. There were dragon patterns on the first painting, and on the left and right were the words on the coins. On the left was Zhongguan Tongbao from the Tang dynasty. On the right was 1,000 taels of gold. In the middle was a picture of a 9-clawed golden dragon, and there was even a seal drawn in red paint on the picture. If Zhang Feng were here, he would definitely jump to his feet. Wasn't it just money? The next few paintings were all based on this one, but the numbers changed from big to small, to as small as 1 copper coin, and the drawings changed from 1 foot high and half a foot wide to less than the size of a palm. However, this was already enough to shock Li Shimin. Minister Feng, you really are my good. Just do it. But Li Shimin calmed down slightly, frowned and thought for a while, and then said, Zhang Sun, take this drawing to Zhang Feng immediately and see what he thinks. If there is no problem, from tomorrow onwards, I will give you a token to go to Cheng and City immediately. Start with the merchants and the major banks in Cheng and City. Your Majesty. Wei Zheng asked, this old subject thinks that we have more than 40 million taels of gold in our hands, plus the money in the national treasury. If we set up a bank, why do we need to make peace with others? Li Shimin heard this. He slapped his forehead hard. He forgot about this matter. If he borrowed the hands of others, wouldn't he be sharing his money with others? And he really didn't feel at ease leaving this matter to others. He also forgot Zhang Feng's words in a moment of excitement. He couldn't help but slap the blueprint of the banknotes and said, I will go personally to set up a bank and pawn shop. No. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. The emperor will go personally? How could this be? This was the emperor. How could those merchants compare to him? But Li Shimin didn't care. Every day, he heard Zhang Feng's business ideas. Although magnified countless times, it was the way to rule a country, he also saw the profiteering of merchants. He also wanted to experience the real pleasure of doing business. And most importantly, this matter, the pawn shop and the bank, he had to have it in his hands to be at ease. Even if it was the crown prince, he couldn't be at ease. Enough. I have made up my mind. Aren't we merchants in the eyes of brother Zhang Feng? Then, this time, I will play the role of a true merchant with you. Wei Zheng wanted to persuade him again. If this matter was known by others, wouldn't they be laughed at? But before he could say anything, Zhang Sun Wuji raised his wine cup and poured a cup of wine for him. This matter was finally decided. And everyone left in a hurry. At this moment, Zhang Sun Wuji's little scheme sprouted again. Sitting in the sedan chair swayed dizzily. Looking at the blueprint of the banknotes in his hand, Zhang Sun Wuji's face flashed a different look. This time, the emperor was going to set up a bank in person. It was obvious that he was determined to keep a close eye on Zhang Feng. This time, he had to speed up. Otherwise, there would be no other way in the future. Thinking of this, Zhang Sun Wuji shouted to the groom outside the sedan chair, go and tell Wei Zheng and the other lords to have a small gathering at the residence. Chapter 126. The afternoon sun scorched the pedestrians on the streets of Cheng and City. They looked listless as if they had been hit by frost. Zhang Feng was sitting on a deck chair under a crooked tree in front of the tavern. He was fanning himself with a cattail leaf fan. Beside his mouth was a hemp rope as thick as a thumb. On the hemp rope was an iron wine flask that Zhang Feng had spent a lot of money to make. The wine flask was not big. It was about the size of a palm, but it was long and narrow. It looked like a gourd. However, only Zhang Feng knew that this thing looked like a beer bottle in his memory from his previous life. However, on the side of the bottle, there was a long and thin spout that showed its extraordinariness. Just like Zhang Feng, who was assimilating into the Tang dynasty. He could take a sip of the wine just by waving his cattail leaf fan twice. His days were indescribably comfortable. He missed the days when Lao Li and the others were around. To be honest, Zhang Feng was a person who was afraid of loneliness. However, he was also afraid of being drowned in the torrent of history. Therefore, he was unwilling and despised the people of Chang, and who were full of fleas and smelled of sweat. Whenever Lao Li came, he was the happiest. Other than that, he spent most of his time napping under the crooked tree in front of the tavern. He hoped that one day, a transmigrator would recognize the wine flask and cry. However, he did not see a transmigrator. Instead, he saw a fat face. Zhang Feng was so shocked that he spat out the wine that he just drank. Cough, cough, cough. Old son. You, cough, cough, cough. When did you come? Where's Lao Li? When he finally came back to his senses, he walked past Zhangsun Wuji. He did not see Lao Li. This was strange. This was the first time. Other than when they came with Lao Li, this was the first time that Old Sun came without Lao Li's knowledge. However, it was good that Old Sun was here. Old Sun was a smart person. He was witty and shrewd. This was how a businessman should be. Zhangsun Wuji closed his eyes and gave a fist salute. Brother Zhang Feng. I didn't disturb your sleep, did I? What are you bothering me for? How can I be so bored? Come on, let's go in and drink. As he spoke, Zhang Feng dragged the recliner and Zhang Sun into the tavern. However, Zhang Sun Wuji's eyes were fixed on the pot and the recliner. In fact, Zhang Sun Wuji had arrived a long time ago. However, when he saw such a strangely shaped chair that could sway on its own and looked extremely comfortable, he could not help but be tempted. He could not help but sit at a tea stall opposite Zhang Feng and drink tea while looking at his chair. It was at this moment that he noticed the shiny and strangely shaped pot. Looking at Zhang Feng's relaxed appearance, he could not sit still any longer. At this time, while Zhang Feng was not aware, he stuffed the pot into his arms. Today, in the tavern, Zhang Feng's chatterbox was opened. He took out a high-quality bag of salt-fried beans and a plate of braised tofu from the counter. Then, he took out 2 small wine glasses and asked, "What did Lao Li do today?" Zhang Sun Wuji was speechless. "Why? You don't welcome me now that Lao Li is not here?" Zhang Feng waved his hands. No, what are you talking about? Don't you guys come with Old Li every time? Today, I didn't see Lao Li, so I was a little surprised. Come, little brother, I'll drink as punishment. As he spoke, Zhang Feng drank a full cup. Inadvertently, he saw Zhang Sun Wuji's bulging chest and pointed, "Don't tell me you stole your family's bag?" Zhang Sun Wuji's face stiffened. What are you talking about? I came here today mainly to talk about the banknotes. This matter is a little big. Lao Li and Old Wei went to the leader's mansion to discuss the cooperation. That's why I came here. As he spoke, Zhang Sun Wuji narrowed his eyes and rubbed his hands. I heard that last time you praised Lord Zhangsun to Lao Li. Zhang Sun Wuji was looking forward to it. At his age, there was no way for him to be promoted. What he cared about the most was his reputation. Especially when it came from the mouth of a virtuous person like Zhang Feng. Ever since Wei Zhe gained the reputation of being a virtuous sage, he was so arrogant that Zhang Sun Wuji wanted to slap him from behind. Now, he wanted to hear how Zhang Feng praised him. This was not a secret. Zhang Feng took a sip of wine and chewed on the beans, making a crunching sound. Lord Zhangsun. Lord Zhangsun is a rare good official in the Ministry of Justice. The Ministry of Justice is an offending job. It's the Emperor's wisdom to give him the job. As for this Zhangsun Wuji, if I may say something disrespectful, this fellow was originally from the Chang nation. However, for him to be able to climb to this step, half of it is because of his strategy, and the other half is his personal charm. It can be said that he's the most charming person in the court. Good. Well said. Zhangsun Wuji really wanted to drag Zhang Feng to those old geezers and let them listen to him. This is what you call a good friend. Zhangsun Wuji could not help but ask again, other than official matters, I came here today to ask you about a private matter. Please speak. Zhang Feng was very curious. It's like this. Lao Li is preparing to let his sons come here to learn about business. After all, you know that we're all rough people. Come, the wine glass in Zhang Feng's hand fell to the ground with a thud. He asked in a trembling voice, Lao Li, he has sons? Chapter 127. Zhang Feng's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He couldn't help but reveal his curiosity. Hey, old son, how many wives does Lao Li have? How many sons does he have? Does he have a daughter? How old are his sons? How old is his oldest daughter? What does she look like? He asked a few questions in a row. Zhangsun Wuji was dumbfounded. This guy didn't know that the emperor had a child? He asked so many questions in detail. Was he thinking of, could it be that Wei Jing was right? This guy was thinking of love? Otherwise, why would he think of the emperor's daughter so much? He shouldn't have such thoughts. Now that he thought about it, he really came up with something. He had been so attentive from the beginning. Could it be that he was aiming for the princess from the beginning? Zhangsun Wuji couldn't help but look at Zhang Feng in a different way. Zhang Feng couldn't stand this kind of scrutinizing gaze. He smiled embarrassedly. I'm just curious. Lao Li looks like he's in his 20s or 30s. I didn't expect him to have a child. But on second thought, Zhang Feng instantly felt that he was an idiot. This was ancient times. Damn it. This was the most prosperous Tang dynasty in the feudal era. At this time, although the law stipulated that men could only get married at the age of 18 and women at the age of 16, many rich people, influential people, and villagers got married at the age of 13 or 14. Thinking of this, how old was Lao Li's son? He didn't dare to think. Zhangsun Wuji also let down his guard amidst his suspicions. The emperor's daughter was his niece. How could it be so easy to be his niece's son-in-law? But when Zhang Feng said this, Zhangsun Wuji slowly let down his guard. He said, actually, you also know that for people like us, marriage is basically decided by our parents. It has nothing to do with us. Lao Li's eldest son is 12 this year. There are 3 more who are between 10 and 12 years old. When Zhang Feng counted with his fingers which year Li Shimin would get married, Zhangsun Wuji said speechlessly, I'm talking about serious matters. Oh. Okay, go ahead. Lao Li is thinking about this matter. It hasn't been decided yet, but I think it's very likely. Zhang Feng had a headache. I do lack friends. But this Lao Li, you can't trick me, right? At the very least, I've taught you so many things that have been passed down from generation to generation, and you actually want to fool me with your son? Seeing Zhang Feng grumbling but not rejecting the offer, Zhangsun Wuji's eyes gleamed. So you're saying that you agree? 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 Who are you trying to fool? Zhang Feng was about to explode. Lao Tzu was lonely. If you're so capable, you can find me 100 Hu women. If not, you can even invite one of the top singers in Spring Breeze. Isn't it nice to listen to music when you have nothing to do? You're giving me a bunch of naked dolls. Do you want me to be the head of the dolls? Although he was grumbling, he knew what Lao Li meant. This matter had to wait for Lao Li to come. He had to find a random reason to fool him. Otherwise, he didn't want to be followed by a bunch of snots all day long and have to clean up after them. Thinking about it, Zhang Feng felt a chill run down his spine. When Zhang Sun Wuji saw this, he thought that Zhang Feng had agreed. He couldn't help but roll his eyes and start sobbing. This time, Zhang Feng was curious. I say, old son, are you saying that Lao Li stirred you up or that your wife beat you up? If you're beaten up by your wife, I can't do anything about it, but I have a trick up my sleeve. I guarantee that I'll be able to tame your wife with just one move. No, no, no. Zhang Sun Wuji wiped the sweat off his forehead. He sighed and said, speaking of which, I'm 43 years old this year. I have 4 sons in my family, but they're all good for nothings. They even have the nickname, stubborn, in Cheng and City. Don't you think that old man is bitterly disappointed? Tell me, if one day I were to kick the bucket, would I be able to hand over this huge family business to him? Stubborn? The most stubborn person in Cheng and City, Zhang Sun, isn't even worried about Lao Tzu. What are you worried about? Hearing that, Zhang Sun Wuji wanted to grab Zhang Feng by the collar, point at his nose and roar. I'm the most stubborn father. Alas. Thinking of that, Zhang Sun Wuji sighed again. Logically speaking, my eldest son is already 17 or 18 years old, but he's always fooling around. As his father, I'm always busy with business matters. His mother passed away early, ouch. Old son, I beg you to stop talking. When you cry like this, my heart feels terrible. Zhang Feng was completely annoyed. He hurriedly stopped old son and asked him to stop talking. Don't worry about this. I need to think about it. Don't provoke me. I don't want to pass on my skills to others for 100 years. We'll talk about it when I become an official. The speaker was trying to fool Zhang Sun Wuji, but in Zhang Sun Wuji's ears, it was a completely different story. What was this guy talking about? He still wanted to go to the bureaucracy. That's easy. The Ministry of Personnel is a good place to go. As long as you want to go, I'll sign it for you today, so that they won't snatch you away. Thinking of that, Zhang Sun Wuji immediately stopped crying and looked at Zhang Feng with a smile that resembled a chrysanthemum flower. Brother Zhang Feng, think about the Ministry of Personnel. Chapter 128. The Ministry of Personnel. Zhang Feng looked at Zhang Sun Wuji as if he was looking at a monster. Zhang Sun Wuji felt goosebumps all over his body. Brother Zhang Feng, the Ministry of Personnel, that's a good place. You said it yourself. It's under the jurisdiction of the Lord Zhangsun. We're working with the Lord Zhangsun now. If you want to go, I can get it done for you right away. I'm not going. He did not even think about it. Zhang Feng pursed his lips and shattered Zhang Sun Wuji's plan. Didn't you say that the Ministry of Personnel is good? That's the department that governs all the officials in the world. Which department doesn't have to bow down to the people from the Ministry of Personnel? You don't know. The Ministry of Personnel is a place where you can drink tea, read books, and even take a nap when you're free. No one cares about it. It's definitely a good place to go. I'm not going. You said that it's a place where only people who are waiting to die are willing to stay. Look. As he spoke, Zhang Feng pointed at his own nose and said, I'm such a brilliant, powerful, and handsome young man. You want me to go to the Ministry of Personnel and wait for death? Are you kidding me? Old son. I think you're very smart when it comes to business, but when it comes to official matters, the more I look at you, the more I feel that there's something wrong with you. Zhang Feng pointed at his head as he spoke. Zhang Sun Wuji spat out a mouthful of blood when he heard that. Damn it. Didn't you just say that the Ministry of Personnel was good? Besides, what's wrong with the Ministry of Personnel? Wouldn't everyone want to sharpen their heads to get in? Why is it that when it comes to you, it's a piece of sh*t? Is the Ministry of Personnel so disliked by you? Zhang Sun Wuji was very hurt. For the first time, he doubted the Ministry of Personnel that he was so proud of. That's enough. Don't think too much about it. I'll go when it's time. Zhang Feng comforted the injured Zhangsun Wuji. Actually, the Ministry of Personnel Affairs was not as bad as he made it out to be. It was just a bunch of old men. Besides, that was a place that offended people. If you wanted to demote them, why don't you try? For someone like him who had no status, background, or even identity, he would be gnawed to the bone in less than 3 days. However, there was nothing to say now. Let's talk about it later. Sigh. It's all because of this damned system. When are you going to activate it? Half a year. How long has it been? 7 months. The more he thought about it, the angrier Zhang Feng got. He decided not to think about it anymore. He asked, "Oh right, you said that Laoli went to Zhang Xuan's residence? Does that mean His Majesty has allowed it?" "Yes." Once they got back to business, Zhang Sun Wuji's face immediately turned serious. "It's like this. Lord Zhangsun and His Majesty have already discussed this matter last night. Now, Laoli and Old Wei are discussing the detailed deployment of the matter at Lord Zhangsuan's residence. The palace's painter worked overnight to draw a few samples of banknotes. Laoli was worried and asked me to come over to you to take a look." As he spoke, Zhangsun Wuji took out a piece of paper from his pocket. He carefully spread it out in front of Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng was very pleased with this. He was still wondering if Laoli and the others could handle Lord Zhangsun with their intelligence. But now, it seemed that he was overthinking. The current emperor was also someone who lacked money. Why would he not earn money when there was money? Was he stupid? Zhang Feng took the paper, but the next moment, he was stunned. F***CK. What the F***CK? This, who the F***CK drew this? Zhang Feng exploded. What was drawn on this paper? It looked like a product of the Heaven and Earth Bank, but upon closer inspection, it wasn't banknotes. Who drew this? Zhang Feng's expression was serious. He suspected that the person who drew this was a time traveler. This. I heard that it was drawn by Fang Xianling. Fang Xianling? Is Fang Xianling a time traveler? Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. But after thinking about it, it didn't make sense. If he was really a transmigrator, then the progress of the Great Tang and the things that he had implemented were all things that could be found anywhere in the modern era. If he was really a transmigrator, he would have done it long ago. Why would he wait for him? Besides, if Fang Xianling was a time traveler, he would have come to find him long ago. He wouldn't have dug such a big hole for him now. He thought about it. In the end, Zhang Feng gritted his teeth and sighed. He rejected the guess in his heart. The wisdom of the ancients. It was really powerful. It was terrifying. Zhang Sun Wuji was also given a huge fright. He had never seen Zhang Feng react so strongly. Could it be that this thing didn't work? If it didn't work, there was no need for such a reaction, right? Could it be, this drawing had a lot to do with Zhang Feng? Only this could make Zhang Feng lose his composure. In the past, he had always been calm and collected, as if he had the whole situation under control. It was rare to see him in such a state. However, after thinking about it again and again, this was something that Fang Xianling had found out from his treasures of calligraphy. For a moment, Zhang Sun Wuji didn't know what to do. After a long time, he saw Zhang Feng staring at the drawing in a daze. He couldn't help but ask carefully, "Brother Zhang Feng, is this thing okay? Also, could it be that this map is very important to you?" Chapter 129. What does it have to do with me? Of course it has to be. This was the money that he had worked hard for in his previous life. How could he not recognize it? However, after confirming that this thing was drawn by Fang Xianling after he saw his own words, Zhang Feng suddenly felt that Fang Xianling was a celestial being. When he had time, if he entered the imperial court as an official, He would have to pay him a visit. Brother Zhang Feng? Brother Zhang Feng? Seeing that Zhang Feng was surprised and even laughed from time to time, Zhang Sun Wuji was a little worried and waved his hand twice. I'm fine, I just feel that this drawing is really good. Zhang Feng put down the drawing, smacked his lips, picked up a fried bean and threw it into his mouth. He looked at Zhang Sun Wuji curiously and said, You're starting on this now? Yes. This is Lao Li's idea. After all, if we can get it done earlier, we can see the benefits earlier, right? Zhang Feng did not express his opinion, which was rare. Zhang Sun Wuji could not help but feel a little worried. Is there a reason behind this? Brother Zhang Feng, what are you worried about? Nothing, but let me give you a piece of advice. If this matter is not done by the current emperor or Zhang Sun Wuji, you can't do it. Zhang Sun Wuji was speechless. Can't you say it all at once? However, Zhang Sun Wuji also silently calculated in his heart. Although Zhang Feng said a lot of things and a lot of things, it was very messy. However, if these points were strung together, then everything was so sharp. For example, the matter he said just now, it seemed to be nothing at first, but after thinking about it carefully, it really made Zhang Sun Wuji break out in a cold sweat. Brother Zhang Feng, do you mean that if the Lord Zhang Sun or the authorities don't make a move, and we make a move, we'll be overstepping our authority? Although Zhang Sun Wuji felt a little awkward, he thought about it. Although the emperor had said it, it was just a casual remark. The specific matters had not been decided yet. If he hurried to arrange it at this time, then, Zhang Feng nodded. Old son. You're a smart man. You'll understand the logic behind this matter after a little bit. He's much better than Lao Li. Let me tell you something else. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Now was not the time for that. There must be an opportunity before taking action. What opportunity? Zhang Sun Wuji really couldn't think of this. He hurriedly poured a bowl of wine for Zhang Feng and looked at Zhang Feng eagerly, trying to dispel his doubts. Zhang Feng fiddled with the fried beans on the plate and said, The opportunity is the plague of locusts. What? The plague of locusts? Zhang Sun Wuji was a little confused. Isn't the plague of locusts under control? According to your method, the locusts in Longyu will basically be extinct. Even if there are a few locusts now, they won't be able to do anything. You're wrong. Zhang Feng pointed at his head and asked, Think carefully. What did I say before? I've been talking about the plague of locusts next year. Zhang Sun Wuji was dumbfounded. His face was full of confusion. Could he really predict what would happen next year? How could Zhang Feng predict what would happen next year? He only knew from his memory that the plague of locusts in Longyu was rampant in the 3rd year of Zhengguan. The people of the Tang dynasty had no way to make a living, and many of the surrounding countries were affected. He only knew this from this little bit of Tang history. Moreover, in the future, anyone who knew a little about Baidu would know about this matter. He was the most talented student in history. How could he not know about this period of history? Combined with the current drought in Longyu and the speed of drought prevention in the surrounding countries, he guessed that the drought next year would probably be unstoppable. Let me tell you carefully one more time. Zhang Feng looked at Zhang Sun Wuji, who was eager to learn from him. The drought this year is basically over. But, look, it's already June. How much rain does Longyu and Cheng'an City have? No. Oh. Hiss. Zhang Sun Wuji seemed to want to say something, but in the end, it turned into a long gasp of cold air. Don't mention it. This year, from March until now, the rain in Cheng'an has been pitifully low. If you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten about it. Let's not talk about Cheng'an. Basically, the rain in the Tang dynasty this year is almost half of what it was last year. Even after such a long time, there is not even a shadow of rain in Longyu. Zhang Sun Wuji did not dare to say anything more. At this time, his face was already pale. Brother Zhang Feng, do you mean that the drought in Longyu is not over yet? It will continue until this time next year? If that's what you're saying, then isn't everything we're doing now a little too? God. Will the locusts really be rampant next year? When we heard you mention the plague of locusts, we always thought that it would happen this year. We've always been trying to prevent it. But now, if that's really the case, then, wouldn't all our previous preparations be in vain? Zhang Sun Wuji was really anxious. If that was the case, why did they not want food before? Why did they have to talk so much with Tubo? Now, there was such a big problem. Now, if... What would they do in the future? Zhang Feng, on the other hand, was much calmer. He patted Zhang Sun Wuji on the shoulder and said, "Brother, calm down. Let me tell you. Since you came to me about this, I will do it. Do you think I will cheat you? Then, what should we do about this?" Zhang Sun Wuji spread his hands. Zhang Feng raised his wine bowl and said indifferently, "This is not urgent for now. Let me tell you next time." Chapter 130. How could he not be anxious about this? It would be strange if he wasn't. If people knew about this, the consequences would be unimaginable. No wonder he said that before the emperor took action, they couldn't do anything. If he was really a businessman, he wouldn't have dared to take action. Who would dare to take action at this time? Their whole family would be annihilated. Although Zhang Sun Wuji wasn't a businessman, he couldn't stand up to the civil and military officials in the court. "Brother, don't keep me in suspense. I know you're awesome and you have a way, but we can't." Zhang Sun Wuji was so anxious that he almost jumped on the wall. As for Zhang Feng, he was still leisurely drinking and eating the stir-fried beans. Those beans were crunching non-stop in his mouth, and Zhang Sun Wuji was also extremely anxious. He wanted Zhang Feng to choke to death on the beans. "Brother, tell me, do your previous arrangements have a lot to do with this locust plague?" "Yes. Think about it. If we don't do anything about this year's locust plague, what will you do when the locusts come out and I say that they will cause a devastating disaster? If we don't do anything about it this year, even if the Daoist immortal descends next year, he will turn around and run away. Do you believe me?" Zhang Feng was speechless. Even the emperor wasn't anxious. Why would a little commoner like you be anxious? Zhang Sun Wuji seemed to understand something. But he was still a little confused. And he was even more shocked by Zhang Feng's control of the whole situation. Was this the control of the whole situation? "This, let me explain it to you." Zhang Sun Wuji was a little confused. He counted with his fingers and said, "This matter, during the drought, were you planning all this? Then, Tubo, according to your method, the emperor is only taking money now. Does that mean the emperor's intention is the same?" "Yes." Zhang Feng gave him a thumbs up. "You're finally enlightened. Who is the emperor?" "That's an emperor for all eternity. As I've said before, if this matter succeeds, the Tang dynasty will have an endless supply of cheap, free labor to store grain for the Tang dynasty bit by bit. What if it fails?" Zhang Feng shrugged and said, "Do you think Tubo can still get off the pirate ship under the current circumstances?" Zhang Sun Wuji was shocked. A setup. Everything was a setup. From a blueprint, they had firmly tied Tubo to the belt of the Tang dynasty. Then, they had let him drill his head in bit by bit. Then, they had squeezed out this year's grain bit by bit. Zhang Sun Wuji finally understood why Zhang Feng wanted a year's worth of food. Next year, when the locust plague breaks out, Tubo will not have any food. What a vicious plan. But why did Lao Tzu like it so much? Have you figured it out? Seeing Zhang Sun Wuji's enlightened face, Zhang Feng asked with a smile. He was like an old faker. A small businessman was a small businessman. His control of the overall situation still did not achieve the effect he expected. However, Zhang Feng did not intend to let Lao Li think it through. He was just too bored, so he said it casually. As for how much benefits they could reap from it and how much property they could save, it was none of Zhang Feng's business. As a friend, He had said enough. Old son. You have to keep this matter a secret. If this matter gets out, even if Zhangsun Wuji and the emperor don't kill you, the people and those idle officials in the court will kill you. I know. I know. Zhangsun Wuji was sweating profusely. He naturally knew the stakes of this matter. He had not lived long enough, also, this matter still has a year's time. I reckon that His Majesty is probably already preparing to stock up on grain. Store up as many resources as you can. Don't use all of your belongings to stock up on grain. Be careful that you don't have the life to spend it. I'm also taking into account your temper. Otherwise, I wouldn't be bothered to talk about something like this. As he spoke, Zhang Feng's finger tapped slowly on the table as if he was lecturing a student. Although this was just a simple action, in Zhang Sun Wuji's eyes, this was King teaching a student. He only lacked a hand to pat him on the head. Brother Zhang Feng, I can't repay your kindness. But, I've taken the matter of the beautiful women to heart. Unfortunately, they are all mediocre beauties now. I guess little brother won't be interested in them. So, big brother and I are all thinking of ways to help you find those top-notch beauties within our capabilities. What was going on? Old son, when did I ask for beauties? Zhang Sun Wuji revealed a knowing expression. He took out a large amount of silver and placed it on the table. Then, he clasped his fist and said, I still have urgent matters to attend to. That's all for today. Next time, I'll definitely prepare a big gift for you. I'll let my son deliver it personally. What did he mean? Hey! Old son. What do you mean by beauties? I didn't say I wanted beauties. Also, I don't accept disciples. Don't bring your son here. If you want, bring your daughter here and serve me tea. Without waiting for Zhang Feng to finish, Zhang Sun Wuji stumbled and fled in a hurry. After Zhang Sun Wuji left, Zhang Feng looked at the swaying hemp rope on the willow tree at the door. He suddenly remembered why Zhang Sun Wuji's chest was bulging. So, this bastard stole my wine jug? This was the iron pot that he had spent 3 rounds of money to get someone to water it. 3 rounds of money. However, looking at the few gold leaves among the silver pieces on the table, Zhang Feng stopped himself from chasing after Zhang Sun Wuji. Next time, I'll hide the good stuff well. Chapter 131. Reporting. Your Majesty, Duke Zhao requests an audience. Summon him. In the imperial study. Li Shimin was discussing with Wei Zheng and the others how to deal with Tubo and the unrest at the Turkic border. At this moment, Zhang Sun Wuji hurried into the imperial study. Your Majesty. Greetings, Your Majesty. Please rise, Duke Zhao. Li Shimin personally helped Zhang Sun Wuji up and asked, how did it go? It's done. Zhang Feng thinks that the banknotes are feasible. I also noticed that Zhang Feng's emotions fluctuated greatly when he saw the banknotes. I suspect that he knows what the banknotes are. Oh. Li Shimin was shocked. He had always thought that Zhang Feng's emotions would never fluctuate in the slightest. However, how could such a small banknote cause such a huge fluctuation in his emotions? Your Majesty, we have to put this matter aside for a while. Oh. Why? Lord Zhangsun, isn't this something we've discussed long ago? Why do we have to put it aside now? If we had done this earlier, it would have brought about unexpected benefits. Wei Zheng, Fang Xianling, and Li Shimin were all shocked. Obviously, this was not Zhang Xuan's idea, but Zhang Feng's. Do you remember the plague of locusts that Zhang Feng mentioned? Of course. Didn't we hear from Long Yu that the plague of locusts is almost over? Li Shimin was also shocked. How did this matter relate to the plague of locusts? No. Your Majesty, please let me finish. Zhang Sun Wuji interrupted the discussion with a grave expression. The plague of locusts has been stopped. However, the plague of locusts that Zhang Feng mentioned is the plague of locusts next year. What? Next year? Do you mean that next year, Li Shimin clapped his hands and said, "Oh no. I remember now. Zhang Feng has been talking about the plague of locusts next year." This time, everyone was dumbstruck. That's right. What Zhang Feng meant was that if the plague of locusts is not stopped this year, even the gods would not be able to save us next year. This year, only a small part of the locusts have been eliminated. Moreover, from Zhang Feng's words, I noticed that since the beginning of the year, even the area around Chang and city has been less than last year. Think about it, how many times has it rained Chang and city this year? How many times has it rained? This time, Li Shimin and the others' faces turned completely pale. But when he thought about it carefully, he couldn't figure it out. In the end, Zhang Sun Wuji slowly sorted out everything that Zhang Feng had analyzed from the very beginning. From the reason why they wanted money and not food, to the appearance of salt, and then to the cooperative, all of these seemed to form a strong connection. Stimulate the economy. Stimulate the people's production. Could it be, was there really a plague of locusts? Li Shimin was a little confused. Your Majesty, this old subject remembers that Brother Zhang Feng said that there would be a plague of locusts next year. Now, the Turkic Khaganate snowstorm has passed, but the frozen water has left the Turkic plains barren. This is exactly what Zhang Feng said. Wei Jing summed up the situation and said. With this analysis, Li Shimin and the others finally understood why the Turkic border was so lively at this time. It turned out that, were they going to make a big move? If that was the case, whether it was the salt or the cooperative, they had to wait for a while. Then, did Zhang Feng say what we should do about this? Li Shimin asked with a serious face. This, Zhang Sun Wuji Yunchuan's face turned pale. After this old subject heard the news, I hurried back to inform him. He didn't ask more. He only said that if we want to get the banknotes and the cooperative, we need an opportunity. Is he talking about the locust plague? Yes. Li Shimin Yunxian was silent. With his hands behind his back, he walked around the imperial study for a long time. Then he said, what else did he say? Nothing. Zhang Sun Wuji Yunxian thought for a while and said, he said not to use all of our belongings to hoard food. Li Shimin Yunchuan's eyes lit up. That's right. Everything was for the sake of food. From solving the problem of Tubo, to setting a trap, to waiting for Tubo and Tuyahan to come again, it was all for this matter. Could it be that Zhang Feng was really a 1,000-year-old monster? Even though Li Shimin Yunxian didn't believe this. However, Zhang Feng's overall view of the situation made him a little shocked. It was too scary. He also understood that although there was still a year before the next locust plague, the matter of hoarding food, as Zhang Feng said, couldn't be too publicized. My dear subjects, if we want to hoard food, what do you think we should do now? Everyone was silent. Fang Xianling, who had been silent all this time, and Du Ruhui Yunxian whispered to each other. Then he said, Your Majesty, this old subject thinks that we should follow Brother Zhang Feng's words. We think that this way. Immediately. Fang Xianling and Du Ruhui Yunxian discussed the matter in detail with Li Shimin Yunxian for 2 hours. Then Li Shimin Yunxian gave the order with a solemn expression. You also know the serious consequences of this matter. From today onwards, take out all of the 40 million gold and secretly purchase food. Privately hoard food and order all the prefectures to strictly control the food and hoard food for me. Yes, Your Majesty. Chapter 132. The work of stockpiling grain in Chang and city was quietly in full swing. In the past 3 days, even if no one in Chang and city deliberately publicized the news, it had spread like wildfire. The price of grain, which was originally 10 copper coins per caddy, suddenly soared to 13 copper coins. And this was the price after the government had banned it. If the government had not intervened, who knew how much the price of this thing would have skyrocketed? Although Zhang Feng had already stored a large amount of rice and noodles in the small tavern, he could not help but sigh when he saw the sea of people in the rice shop at this time. This damned epidemic. Then, carrying half a bag of rice and noodles, he sauntered toward the small tavern. Along the way, what Zhang Feng saw were all panic-stricken people rushing to grab the rice, and groups of people wearing strange clothes who were rushing to Cheng and with goods full of astonishment. Seeing this, Zhang Feng could not help but frown. These people seemed to have increased a lot in the past few days. Was the emperor going to make a big move? Could it be that Lao Li and the others had arranged it? Zhang Feng was a little surprised. Zhang Feng squatted in front of a stall as he looked at the teams of cars that returned with full loads of goods and the Western regioners who were squatting by the side of the street, guarding strange glass bottles or gemstones. Honorable customer of the Tang dynasty, you have good taste. This is a rare gem in the Western regions. It is very strong and, how much is it? Zhang Feng knew about this pink diamond the size of a broad bean. He asked without changing his expression. He did not expect to see this thing in the Tang dynasty. This thing was called a diamond, and in some places, it was also called a diamond. In the future, such a big pink diamond would cost at least 6 figures. Secretly suppressing the excitement in his heart, he pretended to be quiet in the stall and looked for other glass products. No. In this era, it was called colored glass. Trash. All of it was trash. It was even worse than the defective products produced by a small glass factory in the future. Honorable customer, if you really want it, 100 copper coins. Alas. Honorable customer. Please wait, wait. This. Hearing that it was 100 copper coins, Zhang Feng turned around and left. Damn it. Although it was not expensive, he should not act so arrogantly, right? He turned around and left. But before he could take more than 2 steps, a bearded middle-aged merchant from the western regions, who had a serious body odor, grabbed Zhang Feng and mysteriously took out a black diamond from his pocket, as well as 3 slightly smaller diamonds. He said with a painful expression, "Honorable customer, I've traveled a long way. 100 copper coins, these are all yours." Seeing that Zhang Feng was about to leave impatiently, the vendor reached out and stuffed the diamond into Zhang Feng's hand. Zhang Feng raised an eyebrow. Deal. Under the suspicious expression of the barbarian vendor, he tossed down 100 copper coins and quickly left. Damn it. Fortunately, the people in this world did not know the use of these things. If they knew, these diamonds would be priceless even if they were worth 300 taels of gold, let alone 100 copper coins. Zhang Feng stared at the pink and black diamonds in his hand. Dozens of plans to make a fortune had already been hatched in his mind. Everyone loved beauty. If this thing was hyped up, its value would be, not only that, Zhang Feng had many other things that needed this thing to be cut. For example, sunglasses. After Zhang Feng left, the barbarian man dug out another handful of diamonds from the soles of his shoes and placed them on the shelf again. If Zhang Feng saw this, he would definitely give this unscrupulous merchant a good scolding. At this time, Zhang Feng happily took a few diamonds and went to the blacksmith shop again. He paid the price of 50 copper coins and asked the shopkeeper of the blacksmith shop to polish the 5 iron kettles he watered until they shone brightly. This time, he did not have to worry about them robbing him anymore. He took the pot and wrapped it up. Then, he dragged the recliner and lay down under the crooked tree in front of the tavern again. He listened to the hubbub of people shouting and drinking the wine in the pot with relish. What a comfortable life. However, when Zhang Feng closed his eyes, he started to feel puzzled. At this time, there were many barbarian merchants coming and going in and out of Cheng and city. This was not normal. What exactly was abnormal? Zhang Feng thought carefully in his mind. In June of the 2nd year of Jingguan Temple, it seemed that there were no major events in Cheng and city. What was going on? So many foreign merchants, were they all here to ask for water carts? That was not necessary, right? The news about Tubo would not spread so quickly. That was not right. Zhang Feng seemed to have thought of something. The fan in his hand suddenly stopped fanning. He could not help but murmur, Li Yuan's birthday seems to be Damn it. Who are you? Just as he was about to guess why so many people were here at this time, Zhang Feng suddenly felt a dark shadow and the stench of sweat suddenly enveloped him. He slowly opened his eyes, only to see a black shadow that was only an inch away from him. That person just stared at his wine jug with a pair of wide eyes. Zhang Feng was scared out of his wits. Zhang Feng's exclamation also scared that person into retreating. Then, he squatted and sat on the ground. Zhang Feng did not care. He sat up and stared at the person. With a gloomy face, he asked, "Who are you?" Chapter 133. He was standing in front of Zhang Feng. One of them was wearing clothes similar to those of the Tang dynasty, but there were many silver ornaments. His head was wrapped in a large linen cloth, which was decorated with rows of pearls. Humans were so dark and gloomy. He looked about 20 years old. It was a man. Behind the man, there was a similarly tanned woman. She agilely pulled the man up as soon as he fell. Both of them were wearing expensive clothes, compared to the group of sweaty servants behind them. At first, Zhang Feng thought that the person who fell to the ground would curse or something when he got up. But he didn't. After the man fell, he hurriedly got up, looked at Zhang Feng with burning eyes, and gave him a bow that he didn't understand. He said, "Sawadika." What the hell? What the hell? I, transmigrated? Zhang Feng was confused by the words, Sawadika. What was that? Could it be? It seemed that they saw Zhang Feng was confused. The man who was wearing crocodile leather boots and was as black as coal waved his hand to make the angry people behind him shut up. Then he said, "Honorable people of the Tang dynasty, I am the Prince of Jinla. My name is Lama Shiva. This is my sister, Lama Dala. We are the Prince and Princess of Jinla." Lama Shiva, who was the leader, explained to Zi Feng in a clumsy Tang dynasty language. But Zhang Feng's mind was still roaring. Sawadika. This was the place he had always been fascinated by. He didn't expect to see them in the Tang dynasty. He looked at the clothes of the so-called prince and princess. Although the princess's face was still a little dark, she was very pleasant to look at. Zhang Feng couldn't help but have a playful look in his eyes. "Hello, guests. I am the shopkeeper of this small tavern. How can I help you?" "Well, go. I almost forgot that you are the prince and princess. This way. Please come in. I'll serve you two the best wine in the Tang dynasty." Without waiting for that guy to explain himself, Zhang Feng pulled him into the tavern in a hurry. He couldn't let an outsider take advantage of this treasure. As soon as they entered the tavern, Zhang Feng began to make preparations. Shiva and the others frowned as they observed the dilapidated tavern. However, even though the tavern didn't look like much, the aroma of the wine was exceptionally alluring. Earlier, Shiva had been attracted by the strange aroma of the wine and the oddly shaped wine jug. Just as everyone was observing the tavern, an alluring aroma wafted out, and their eyes were glued to the kitchen that was covered by a floral curtain. It was too fragrant. The Tang dynasty is indeed the Tang dynasty. How can I compare myself to such delicious food? A moment later, 3 to 5 piping hot dishes were placed on the table. Zhang Feng even opened 3 jugs of white wine with an alcohol content of at least 55%. He placed 1 jug in front of Shiva and Dala, then prepared a large plate of vegetables and threw it on another table. He threw 2 jugs of wine and sat next to Dala as if he was familiar with the place. Come, Your Highness, try my cooking. I guarantee that your trip won't be in vain." Although Shiva was 20 years old, it was his first time in the Tang dynasty to celebrate the birthday of the former emperor of the Tang dynasty, Li Yuan. However, at this time, when he was shopping, he saw a strange chair, a strange wine jug, and a strange man. He was instantly attracted by the man's comfortable posture as he drank. However, he didn't expect that the wine would make him salivate even though he had drunk the wine of the Tang dynasty. That was why he saw the scene just now. However, looking at the exquisite dishes on the table, he didn't dare to eat them. However, his guards weren't so particular. A group of people surrounded the table. Each of them grabbed a handful of food and started to eat. The fragrance instantly attracted the remaining 12 people, and they wolfed down the food. On the contrary, the wine served as a foil. Seeing that the guards were eating happily and nothing else happened, Shiva couldn't help but pick up a piece of twice-cooked pork and throw it into his mouth. A moment later, that mellow fragrance caused his eyes to twitch violently. Why did ordinary pork taste so good after being cooked by him? It was too fragrant. Dala couldn't help it. She didn't pout like a noble. Instead, she ate happily. Shopkeeper, why is your dish better than the others? Why is it better than the chefs of Honglu Temple and Jingtai restaurant in the city? Manager, what dish is this? The two of them ate happily. Zhang Feng smiled. He didn't say anything. Instead, he poured a bowl of wine for the two of them and said, "This is the specialty of this restaurant. Ordinary people can't taste it. I've disturbed the crown prince today, so I made some rare delicacies and wine as an apology. Come, come, come. Try the wine that I've collected for 15 years. As he spoke, Zhang Feng raised the bowl of wine high and drank it in front of the two of them. The rich aroma of the wine made Shiva salivate even though he didn't drink it. However, he didn't dare to drink it since no one was drinking it. Moreover, Zhang Feng was too polite. He didn't dare to. He had more important things to do. He subconsciously pressed his chest and saw that Zhang Feng was fine after drinking a big bowl of wine. Shiva thought to himself. It should be fine after drinking a mouthful, right? He mustered his courage and imitated Zhang Feng. After Dala's persuasion, he slowly took a sip. It's fine. I'll just take a sip. Chapter 134. And here, they were drinking to their heart's content. At this time, something big also happened in the palace. In the deepest part of the palace. This place was exceptionally quiet. It was as if he had been isolated from the outside world. The inside and outside of the high palace walls presented two colors. Outside this area, a large number of Jianghu guards were stationed, as well as the residents of little eunuchs. And within the high walls, there were also a large number of Jianghu guards stationed, but these Jianghu guards were like wooden stakes, only responsible for guarding. And in the palace, all kinds of beauties and palace maids strolling freely, compared to the outside world, had a trace of freedom. This kind of freedom, however, was only limited to this area. This place was a forbidden area in everyone's heart. It was the previous emperor, also the current emperor emeritus, Li Yuan's residence. Outside the walls of Su Rian's palace, it was withered and mottled, even the houses did not have the money to repair, but inside, it was extremely extravagant. In the depths, a large number of women dressed in gorgeous clothes were singing and dancing by the lake, and in the center of the lake, on a flower boat, a white-robed old man with white hair was lying in the bosom of a beautiful woman, his breasts exposed. This kind of extravagance seemed to be endless. It made Li Yuan numb. Even, he was somewhat immersed. But, in this kind of extreme extravagance, Li Yuan also forgot his former glory. Right at this time, an old man dressed in a Confucian robe, holding a token, quietly entered the garden in the center of the lake from the side door, all the way through all the difficulties. Then, looking at Li Yuan's flower boat, he bowed his head and kowtowed. Old official Huang Degui greets the Emperor Emeritus. A familiar yet unfamiliar voice. It made Li Yuan, who was enjoying himself on the flower boat, suddenly flash a trace of confusion in his eyes. Waving his hand, he made the music stop. At this time, although everyone was laughing, the atmosphere suddenly became cold. Li Yuan got up unsteadily, but after trying for a long time, he still could not sit up, half leaning on a woman's body, squinting at the person who came, he asked, "Who are you?" "Behead the Jianghu guards, Your Majesty." Hearing this, that person was greatly shocked. He hurriedly called, Your Majesty. Old official Huang Degui. Have you forgotten? Huang Degui? Li Yuan waved his hand indifferently. After dismissing the Jianghu guards, he had the woman row the flower boat to the shore. At this time, Li Yuan finally saw clearly the person who came. He couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, Huang Degui, raise your head. When Huang Degui heard that, he raised his head with a face full of tears and looked at Li Yuan. Li Yuan said in surprise, you're old. We remember that you had a head of black hair back then. What happened to you? After not seeing you for a few days, your hair has turned white? A few days, Your Majesty. 2 years. This old official is old. To be able to see Your Majesty again, this old subject can die with no regrets. Huang Degui sadly kowtowed on the ground. Right at this time, Li Yuan was carried ashore. He seemed to have woken up at this moment and regained his former glory. Although his face was pale and dispirited, it still couldn't erase his innate majesty. Why have you come to find me today? We remember now. In half a month, our birthday will be here. Could it be that you found something fun? Come, bring it up for me. Your Majesty. This old subject has something to report. Oh. Li Yuan was a little disappointed and said playfully, you're here to file a complaint. Then, tell me about it. When Huang Degui heard that, he hurriedly reported, retired Emperor, half a year ago, His Majesty signed the White Horse Agreement with the Turks, which is the Wei River Alliance, making my Tang dynasty suffer humiliation. You know about this matter, right? We know about this matter. Although His Majesty did something wrong, we think he did the right thing. Could it be that you're here for this matter? The aura on Li Yuan's body was a little dignified. Huang Degui trembled all over. He hurriedly said, retired Emperor. Let me finish. Half a year ago, after His Majesty signed this agreement, his entire person was basically crippled. A month ago, I don't know where he got a method from. It said that it can nourish the kidney and nourish the body. He turned such filthy things like locusts' eggs into delicacies to amass wealth wantonly. Li Yuan interrupted him and waved his hand, we know this. We're taking it now. This thing is indeed effective. Huang Degui, if you have nothing else, get lost. If you have something, go find His Majesty. Don't bother me with such a small matter. Li Yuan was a little angry. Retired Emperor. This is just the cause. In order to deal with the drought in Longyu Road, His Majesty got the help of God to make a water wheel. Not only did he not use it to the Tang dynasty, but he also sold it at a low price. It's equivalent to giving it to Tubo. Just a few days ago, His Majesty suddenly issued a secret order for all provinces and Chang and city to secretly stockpile food. I don't know why His Majesty did this. Even when I asked in court, His Majesty didn't tell me. As a result, the people of the Tang dynasty are in a state of panic. The price of food even skyrocketed in one day. The people are already suffering unspeakably. If this matter is not eradicated, the Tang dynasty will be in chaos. I have no other way, so I came to report to retired Emperor. Moreover, His Majesty not only didn't help the drought in Shandong, but also said that it was the matter of the Shandong gentry and that His Majesty didn't care. Retired Emperor. You have to uphold justice for the common people. Li Yuan frowned slightly. After thinking for a long time, he asked, is this true? Huang Degui prostrated himself and said, I guarantee it with my head. Li Yuan felt more and more that this matter was somewhat unfathomable. He said with a sleeve, help me up. Tell Li Shimin to get over here. Chapter 135. Li Shimin was also in a terrible fix at this time. Originally, everything was going according to plan. But he didn't know what went wrong. He actually chose to let the whole Chang and city know that he was stockpiling grain. Although he had already informed all the major grain merchants about this matter, the news still leaked out. In the bedroom. Li Shimin paced back and forth anxiously. Empress Jiangsun looked at Li Shimin's worried face. She wanted to say something several times, but in the end, she held back. She didn't know how long Li Shimin paced around. Finally, he couldn't help but ask, Maid Guanyin, do you think I did the right thing? Second brother, why do you ask? Empress Jiangsun got up, helped Li Shimin sit down, and poured him a cup of tea. Li Shimin looked at the tea, but he didn't have the slightest intention to drink it. He sighed and said, I dare not say whether there will be a plague of locusts next year. I didn't consider this matter carefully. No. Empress Jiangsun patted the back of Li Shimin's hand. Did Zhang Feng say this? Li Shimin nodded. Then, I think it's true. Oh. Although this concubine has not taken a step out of the palace, this concubine has seen through second brother's relaxed and strategizing during this period of time, as well as the things you have told me. What Zhang Feng said is indeed the plague of locusts next year. Oh. You knew about it? Li Shimin was a little surprised. Yes, you were happy at that time, so I didn't want to make you worry. I thought you knew about it, but I never thought that you had forgotten the deeper meaning of his words for the sake of immediate interests. Li Shimin was shocked. Indeed, he had been so caught up in Zhang Feng's words and was attracted by the beauty in Zhang Feng's words that he forgot about the long-term planning. He had neglected his duty. Although he regretted it now, it was still not too late. Second brother, I think the current rumors are actually a good thing. Why do you say that? Second brother, do you still remember the news my eldest brother brought back when he went to inquire about the cooperative? Zhang Feng said that we are missing an opportunity, and what he meant was the opportunity of this locust plague. Obviously, his words are very clear. As for this year's locust plague, I've thought about it. Just as he said, if we don't treat it this year, then next year, even the golden immortals won't be able to control it. This year, so many people benefited from the locusts. Next year, even if second brother doesn't mention it, have you thought about the effects? What about the future? This is a long-term plan. Empress Jiangsun said all that needed to be said in one breath, making Li Shimin's thoughts clearer at this time. Li Shimin could not help but feel a chill in his heart. Then, Guanyin maid, you mean to say that we won't care about what's happening in the market for now? Empress Jiangsun shook her head. She sighed and said, there's still half a month before father's birthday. We'd better think of a way to resolve the conflict between you two. And I have a bold plan for this matter. What plan? Li Yuan was a thorn in Li Shimin's heart. It had always been in his heart. He was thinking about how to resolve the conflict between them all the time. However, if the matter of stockpiling grain was spread to the retired emperor's ears, how could it be resolved? On the contrary, it would make the matter even more intense, right? Empress Jiangsun smiled and said, second brother, you're really smart all your life, but stupid this time. Don't you think about why this matter is like this? Li Shimin thought about it carefully. But he still did not think of the reason. He smiled speechlessly. Stop joking, Guanyin maid. Tell me, what's your plan? Empress Jiangsun smiled. Someone must be behind this matter. Second brother, think about it, who is most likely to be behind it? You mean, in Shandong? Li Shimin was actually shocked. Yes. Other than second brother, not many people know about this matter. Then, what do you think father will do if we reveal this matter in front of all the officials and father at the birthday banquet and catch the culprit? Even if it's the way River Alliance or the locust eggs last time, retired emperor didn't say anything. Although he doesn't care about it, his heart is still with the people of the Tang dynasty. Li Shimin frowned and pondered for a moment, and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Then it turned into a touch of gentleness. He gently put his arms around Empress Jiangsun's waist and said intimately, it's good that I have Guanyin maid. Your Majesty. At this moment, little Gizi's voice sounded hurriedly outside the door. Empress Jiangsun blushed and stepped away from Li Shimin's arms. Li Shimin figured it out, and his whole spirit was refreshed. He waved his hand and said, "Come in." As soon as little Gizi entered the door, he hurriedly reported, "Your Majesty, retired Emperor wants to see you." Retired Emperor? Li Shimin frowned. But in an instant, he understood a lot. At this time, retired Emperor hurriedly looked for him, which meant that there must be something important. What was it that alarmed retired Emperor? The smile that had just appeared on Li Shimin's face turned cold in an instant. He waved his hand and said, "Set up the carriage." Chapter 136. Deep in the palace. Li Shimin hasn't come for some days. Ever since he entered Li Shimin's palace, his mood couldn't help but be suppressed again. As someone who's good at playing with people's hearts, he had already thought through the cause and effect of the matter from Xiao Gizi's report just now. Ever since that incident, the retired emperor rarely had the thought of seeing him. And because of his guilt, even if he was living in poverty, he would do his best to please the retired emperor. After all, he's his father. On this point, Li Shimin believes that as a son, he has already done it to the point of no reproach. So much so that as long as the retired emperor wanted a plaything, even if dozens of horses ran to death, he would order people to find it at the first moment. Originally, Li Shimin wanted to ask Zhang Feng at this birthday to resolve the conflict between them. But he didn't expect that on the eve of the birthday, there would be an accident. He doesn't think that Li Yuan summoned him to discuss the birthday at this time. This is definitely those dishonest people in the court who went to snitch on him. Li Shimin's eyes emitted a blazing light. It made Empress Jiangsun, who was also sitting in the carriage, couldn't help but have her palms sweating. Second brother. Father's matter. I hope you can be more appropriate. After all, he's your father. If there's the slightest mistake, people will talk about it. Who? Li Shimin took a deep breath and swallowed the anger in his chest. He patted the back of Empress Jiangsun's hand. It's okay. Jin knows. Taiji Palace wasn't far from the back hall. A moment later, Li Shimin's carriage stopped at the back hall between the heavily guarded palace and the Ministry of Internal Servants. Getting off the carriage, a little eunuch personally called the door to report. His Majesty has arrived. In the pavilion in the middle of the lake. Li Yuan tidied up his attire. Although it was still somewhat unrestrained, it was much better than before. At this time, Huang Degui bowed and stood behind Li Yuan, but his whole body could not stop trembling. At this moment, what he feared the most was Li Shimin. He knew what was waiting for him, but what could he do now? He could only wait and let it happen. In the eyes of the royal family, he was just a dog. The only difference was whether he was obedient or not. That was what he truly felt at this moment. If it weren't for the fact that his family's interests were at stake, he wouldn't have dared to stand against Li Shimin. At this time, looking at Li Yuan's back, as well as Li Shimin who came hand in hand with the Empress, his palms were trembling, his legs and stomach were cramping. The most terrifying thing was that the Emperor acted as if he didn't see him and didn't even look at him. After seeing Li Yuan, he bowed to Empress Jiangsun and said, "This son greets Imperial Father." Humph. Li Yuan only snorted. Chapter 137. Father. Li Shimin was a little annoyed. Father. During this period of time, His Majesty has forgotten to eat and sleep because of the drought in Longyu Road. In addition, during this period of time, the Tujue and Tuyuhan are also a little dishonest, so Empress Jiangsun tried to mediate. She could also see that Li Shimin was a little annoyed. However, as a daughter-in-law and the Empress, she had to stand up and persuade. She knew the knot in Li Shimin's heart. Every midnight, Li Shimin would wake up because of the black tortoise gate. He would only remove his disguise at midnight. At that time, he would be his true self. He was afraid of the screams in his dreams. He was afraid of the screams. He was afraid of the screams in his dreams. However, only he and Zhang Sun Wugo knew about all of this. Therefore, Li Shimin could only work so hard that he forgot to eat and sleep, hoping to forget the past and the sorrow. Who would know about these scenes? He was only in his 30s, but his hair was still white. If it weren't for Zhang Feng's worm egg that made Li Shimin's old age slightly recover, Zhang Sun Wugo wouldn't dare to look at Li Shimin's haggard face. After all, she was a woman. Why wouldn't she hope that her husband could let go of all the knots in his heart? She knew that the knot in his heart was Li Yuan. However, at this time, it seemed that, with Zhang Sun Wugo's persuasion, Li Yuan's anger also slowly weakened. He looked at Li Shimin lightly and said, "Even my daughter-in-law understands the truth, don't you understand? I'll ask you one thing. Now, what is the reason for the panic in Chang'an City? Don't use the drought as a pretense. Do you think I'm really old and confused? I don't even know this little thing." "Huang Degui, you tell His Majesty." Li Yuan scolded a few times and instantly panted heavily. He waved his hand and let Huang Degui speak. In an instant, a beautiful imperial concubine served Li Yuan tea and combed his back. Huang Degui's teeth were chattering. How would he dare to say that? However, he had no choice but to say it now. He knelt on the ground with a thud. Huang Degui looked as if he had just eaten feces. He said bitterly, "Your Majesty, retired emperor, at this time, the drought in Longyu Dao is basically under control. However, I didn't know that Chang'an and other prefectures were stocking up grain. It was Your Majesty's order." "Don't know?" Li Shimin smiled playfully. The way he looked at Huang Degui was extremely cold. It was the first time. For the first time since entering this place, Li Shimin glanced at Huang Degui. He was originally an official of the Guanglu Temple. This time, his careful words could already be considered to have offended his superiors. However, he was someone from the Shandong series who could still speak. Moreover, he knew that this time, Li Yuan was giving him a chance to find a way out for himself. If there was even the slightest mistake in what he said, then not only would he be affected, but even the Shandong series that the emperor was very dissatisfied with would also be affected. But he had no choice but to struggle. Watching Chang'an City and other prefectures crazily stocking up grain made him envious. If he didn't fight for some benefits for the various forces in Shandong at this time, then he would have no chance at all. Moreover, after thinking about it, he finally decided to take the risk, bypassing the emperor and directly coming to see Li Yuan. Taking advantage of Li Yuan's birthday, if he pressured the emperor at this time, then the various clans in Shandong would once again make a fortune. After all, the huge amount of grain hoarded was enough to make people go crazy. The clan had already promised that if this accident happened, as long as he made a prompt decision to resign and then fled back to Shandong, then everything would still be in time. Thinking of this, Huang Degui took a deep breath and said, "Your Majesty, at this time, the drought in Longyu has been resolved, and there are 5 wars. I wonder if Your Majesty is storing so much grain for Tubo. I was worried that Your Majesty would send Tubo precious grain from the Tang dynasty to Tubo and help boost Tubo's arrogance, so Li Shimin narrowed his eyes. He looked at Huang Degui as if he was looking at a dead man. "Are you saying that I'm confused? I don't dare. I'll die 10,000 times." Huang Degui decided to speak frankly. "I'm just fighting for a mouthful of grain for the villagers of Shandong. What's wrong with that? If Your Majesty is unwilling, I'll pretend that I never mentioned this matter." Huang Degui said all that he could say and couldn't say in one breath. In an instant, he felt comfortable. However, Li Yuan was not happy. "Back then, didn't you know that if it wasn't for the support of the nobles in Shandong, would the Tang dynasty be where it is today? Would you be as awe-inspiring as you are today? Tell me about it today. I know about the matter in Shandong. Tell me in front of me, how are you going to solve it?" Li Yuan was annoyed. He didn't want to delay anymore. At this time, his face was extremely pale, and his forehead was already sweating. Li Shimin bowed. He wasn't prepared to tell Li Yuan. In fact, he didn't know how to resolve the conflict at this time. He could only delay until he saw Zhang Feng before he could make a conclusion. He had really had enough of this kind of suppression. Father. You will know about this on the day of your birthday. For the time being, it's inconvenient for me to tell you. Everything will come to light on the day of your birthday. Chapter 138. After he finished speaking, Li Shimin no longer paid attention to the furious Li Yuan, coldly glanced at Huang Degui, and then left with large strides. Even that determination was no different from the Xuanwu gate back then. Li Yuan was somewhat aghast. Under Li Shimin's gaze, Huang Degui's entire body trembled. Out of the back hall, Li Shimin looked at the scorching sun in the sky and took a deep breath. Second brother, how do you plan to end this matter? Don't tell me you want to see Zhang Feng. Although Zhang Sun Wugo had never seen Zhang Feng, but Li Shimin's mouth, these two words had never stopped. Since half a year ago, Li Shimin would show off in front of Zhang Sun Wugo. And when Empress Zhang Sun Wugo knew that all this was done by that person, she was also surprised. So at this time, after seeing Li Shimin's troubled face, she unconsciously thought of Zhang Feng. The matter between me and father should not be delayed any longer. The birthday is an opportunity, I don't want to waste it, and father's body seems to be unable to withstand the torment. I also want father to secretly think of family. Alas. Li Shimin sighed deeply. Governing the world. He could play with the world and applaud, but there was only this freak Zhang Feng. He could not figure him out, but his intuition told Li Shimin that Zhang Feng was the foundation of his immortal dynasty. Although he did not want to admit it. But, from every time Zhang Feng's words, that sense of strategy made him incomparably envious. At this time, the two had already become friends. And this matter, Li Shimin's intuition told him that no one other than Zhang Feng could solve it. Your Majesty, seeing Li Shimin's burning eyes. Zhang Sun Wugo wanted to say something but hesitated. Why not summon him into the palace? Second brother doesn't lack an imperial censor by his side. Furthermore, I've noticed that even Wei Jing seems to be praising this kid. This concubine would like to meet him. Li Shimin shook his head. How can I not want to? But he has already become my friend, brother. If I summon him into the palace before he makes a decision, for one, all the officials will not accept it, and with his novel opinions, do you think all the civil officials will tolerate him? Zhang Sun Wugo was silent. Li Shimin was right. This imperial court was a big dye vat, not everyone could participate in it. Once he stepped into this circle, he would be shattered by the impact. Moreover, he was just a small figure without any background. Li Shimin sighed again and got into the carriage. The time is not the time. On the other hand, the matter of Chang and city's grain hoarding did not weaken at all. In a situation where the public did not understand, Zhang Sun Wuji directly said that whoever deliberately inflated the grain price would be beheaded. Whoever spoke nonsense and incited civil unrest would be beheaded. Merchants who dared to hoard grain privately would be beheaded. Those who dared to use power for personal gain would be beheaded. After the 4 orders were issued, the whole of Chang'an fell into a state of panic. Zhang Sun Wuji and the others were even busier at this time. On the one hand, it was because of the grain issue, which was previously carried out in secret, but now it was an open matter. On the other hand, the progress of the matter was a little stagnant. This worried everyone so much that they almost pulled out all their hair. At this time, our General Cheng Yaojin and Zhang Sun Wuji's precious son were on the move. The 2 stubborn experts of Chang'an city set out. In an instant, everyone in Chang'an city was shocked. What could Cheng Chumo and Zhang Sun do? Zhang Sun Wuji was famous for being stubborn. Although Zhang Sun Wuji would give him some face, the 2 of them had formed a clique and pulled out almost half of the stubborn people in Chang'an city in an instant. And the initiator of this matter was Wei Zheng. He stood on the gate tower with a smile, looking at Wei Shuyu, who took off the armor of the Jianghu guard, and said, Son, now is the time to test you. Now, you are no longer the son of Wei Zheng. You are the spear in His Majesty's hand. Go. Take your brothers and show His Majesty what you have done. These words instantly made Qing Chumo and Zhang Sun explode. With a roar, they grabbed their weapons and rushed into Chang'an City. Du Ruhue looked at Du Go with worry in his eyes and asked, Brother Wei, can this method really solve the current chaos in Chang'an City? Everyone else was the same. They were afraid that their precious son would cause trouble. However, Wei Zheng still looked in the direction of the East Market and said, this is a test. This time, if these bastards can really solve the chaos in Chang'an and stock up the food smoothly, this will be their invitation to become Zhang Feng's disciple. No one was a fool. They instantly understood the idea of Wei Zheng, the old fox. Even Qing Yaojin had a rare moment of enlightenment at this moment. Wei Zheng, do you mean that as long as the food chaos in Chang'an is solved, my son can go to the tavern? What if the outsiders are criticized because of this? Wei Zheng was speechless and smiled slightly. Not only that, it's inconvenient for us old guys to show up. Now it's up to them. After all, the world will belong to the young people in the future. This time, not only will they solve this problem, but they will also deal with the nobles from the foreign countries and make them understand a principle. What principle? Everyone asked in unison. Wei Zheng's eyes were fierce. He said word by word. This is the Tang dynasty. Chapter 140. Shiva was not an impulsive person. He also knew what the price of being impulsive was. But now, on one hand, it was because of the alcohol, and on the other hand, everything in this small tavern was shocking to him. Although he was the crown prince, there were at least 30 brothers who wanted him dead. If he didn't have any tricks up his sleeve, he didn't know who would get the throne in the end. Therefore, he gritted his teeth and went all out. Zhang Feng had achieved his goal. He completely used the great deception technique. Let me ask you, what are the specialties of Jinla? Jade, top-grade jade, coral, seafood, and all kinds of fruits. Shiva reported truthfully. Zhang Feng nodded. Then, what is your business? What are your main cash crops? Zhang Feng was a little angry. He was afraid that what he said would be different from the Jinla of the future. However, he knew that Sawatika was an industry thousands of years in the future. When Shiva's words became sluggish, he knew that his opportunity had come. His goal would soon be achieved. I won't hide it from Master Zhang. My Jinla's location is rather barren, so I'm very ashamed. My Jinla's cash crop basically depends on fruits and seafood. My goal in coming to the Great Tang this time was to obtain some farming experience. Our food supply is basically not enough to feed our people. Shiva said it was very miserable, but in Zhang Feng's impression, the rice produced in that place was very expensive even in the dignified Huaxia. Why was it so difficult to grow this thing in Jinla during the Tang dynasty? Wasn't this his opportunity? Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Zhang Feng scolded with resentment. Shiva and Dala's eyes widened in an instant. Dala asked naively, then may I ask Master Zhang, what's ridiculous about it? She was a little angry. Looking at Zhang Feng's chest, she was so angry that she pouted her lips high. For a woman, that jade was something that she had to wear from birth. It had to be taken by her future husband when she got married and then passed on to the next generation. However, in this small tavern, Brother Wang treated it as a gift and gave it to this pervert. How could she be happy? However, this person was quite good-looking. Thinking of this, Dara's face turned even redder. Zhang Feng couldn't see this scene, but Shiva saw it clearly, but he didn't say anything. He was just waiting for Zhang Feng to speak. Zhang Feng didn't say anything and remained silent. Shiva instinctively glanced at the pair of earrings on Dala's ears. He gritted his teeth and gestured for her to step down. Then, he respectfully placed the earrings in front of Zhang Feng. Seeing this, Zhang Feng was furious. What are you doing? I've already said that we hit it off, but you can't use this thing to humiliate me. Siwa and Dala almost believed him when they saw Zhang Feng pressing his earlobes under his palms as he spoke. Chapter 141. Zhang Feng really wanted to pry open this guy's head to see what was inside. How could they not know such a simple question? Although Jinla had only been established for a short period of time, Zhang Feng understood the history of Jinla and other places after thinking about it carefully. Now, it seemed that other than Jinla, there were only some tribes living in groups. After thinking about this, Zhang Feng sighed. This time, he had given Lao Li and the others free labor. The seafood in the sea had long made him hungry. Let me tell you this. The sea is a treasure given to you by God. Don't you cherish it? Yes. Some of our people rely on the fish in the sea for a living, but this thing can't be eaten for a long time, or it will cause problems. Moreover, if we sell it, the merchants of the Tang dynasty will not care about our fish and shrimp, so. Shiva also had his own difficulties. Of course, they knew that there were treasures in the sea. However, the merchants of the Tang dynasty were extremely crafty people, and the Tang dynasty also had a sea, so it was impossible to export this thing to the Tang dynasty. What do you usually catch? Tell me about it. Zhang Feng was interested. Shiva said in detail, just some fish, and nothing else. Oh right, there are corals, but that place is too dangerous. We don't have a powerful ship like the Tang dynasty, so. Zhang Feng slapped his forehead in distress. Fine. He finally knew why there was no seafood in the Tang dynasty. They only knew how to fish. What else was there in the sea except for fish? Damn, where were those shrimp? Australian lobsters? Tuna? F***CK. What about the nutritious sea cucumbers, sea urchins, starfish, and seahorses? You guys are treating these things like trash. Trash. Uncivilized. Zhang Feng felt sorry for those good things. Sigh. I was born in a treasure mountain, but I came back empty-handed. Zhang Feng looked up at the sky and sighed. This shocked Shiva greatly. However, no matter how he asked, he was unable to wake Zhang Feng from his thoughts. However, he gritted his teeth, took off a string of top-grade pearls from his neck, and presented it to Zhang Feng. This made Zhang Feng blind. He put away the pearl with a smile. Zhang Feng said with a straight face, "You're not allowed to spend any more." Actually. In this sea, other than fish, did you see anything else? For example, something that has long antennae, swims in the water, and jumps. Something like that? As he spoke, Zhang Feng turned around and took out a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone from the counter. He drew the general shape of a shrimp and other marine products. Both of them grew up by the sea. Although Zhang Feng could not tell them their names, the two of them exclaimed as soon as he drew. Oh my! I know this. This is a sea bug. We can't even kill them all. They've almost eaten all the fish eggs. This is a sea crab. It's green and as big as a bowl. There are too many of them. This one is soft. What's this? This one looks like a worm. This one is soft. I know this tentacle monster. Father and the others call it an 8-legged monster. I heard that fishermen often fall victim to them. Zhang Feng drew one for every one of them. Shiva and Dara could name them. And when they heard it, they realized that these things were rampant. F***CK. You treat such good things as dog shit? F***CK. What a waste. Zhang Feng said seriously, these are the real treasures of the sea. And the fish you're talking about are all dregs. Remember, you must keep what I've drawn today a secret. This is something that even the fishermen of the Tang dynasty did not know about. This is the gift of the sea. But, what's the use of these? Shiva finally asked the most important question. The key was that there were so many of these things that all of them were angry because they were the goddess of the sea. The crabs were still okay. Some people still ate them. However, there were too many bones. As for the others, they were horrified just by looking at them. Could these be Kuei treasures? Zhang Feng said again, believe me, if you give up on farming and devote yourself to the sea, I can guarantee that you will make a fortune in less than a year. These things are very valuable. Shiva was shocked. Zhang Feng nodded solemnly. Businessmen are particular about seizing opportunities and creating hype. If you believe me, I can guarantee that there will be caravans buying these things in less than 3 months. And most importantly, you have to sell these things yourselves. If you can't, who knows what you really have? You're hiding it yourselves, and you want the merchants of the Tang dynasty to pay for it? Are you stupid? Zhang Feng was speechless. In this era, although there were such seafood along the coast of the Tang dynasty, there were not as many as Sawatika. That place was a paradise for seafood. And at this moment, he thought of a plan. Only Lao Li and the rest were left for this plan. If this plan worked, not only would he be able to get away with the grain storage crisis in Chang'an, but he would also be able to save Lao Li's life. Zhang Feng couldn't help but look outside the door and murmur in his heart, "Old Li, you have to change your big mouth. As a brother, I can only help you up to this point. As for the grain storage issue in Chang'an, it depends on His Majesty's mood." Chapter 142. When Zhang Feng saw that there was a crazy food grab in Chang'an City, he knew that something bad was going to happen. Moreover, it was Li Yuan's birthday now, and the envoys of various countries were coming. If this thing broke out at this time, it would be really serious. He didn't know why Li Shimin chose to hoard food at this time and with such great fanfare, but it must have something to do with Old Sun. When Old Sun left in a hurry that day, he knew that this guy would definitely tell Lao Li. But from the matter of hoarding food, he faintly sensed that this big mouth wouldn't have said it in the mansion of that old guy Zhang Sun Wuji, right? Thinking about it this way, Zhang Feng was a little panicked. Hoarding food at this time, the current emperor's head was either kicked by a donkey, or he was going to make a big move. But it was obvious that this big move was related to Li Yuan. However, this had nothing to do with him. He was just worried that if this matter made the emperor angry, he would definitely kill people to deter the world. Then who would he kill? Of course, Lao Li and the other small businessmen. At that time, he was afraid that he would die before the system was activated. At this time, he unexpectedly met Sawatika. This unexpected guest made Zhang Feng applaud. He really came at the right time. Thinking of this, Zhang Feng excitedly told the two naive people about the commercial secrets related to aquatic products in detail. But in fact, this was not a secret at all. In the future, this was a common thing. It was just a business method to buy low and sell high, but it was regarded as a supreme treasure by the naive Prince Shiva. While Zhang Feng was trying his best to persuade them, the gold and silver of Shiva and his sister were all in Zhang Feng's pocket. Zhang Feng was so embarrassed that he felt a little embarrassed. "Hey! This is what I said. You have to remember it well." Shiva solemnly stood up, excitedly performed the noble etiquette with Dala, and then said solemnly, "Master Zhang, you are too serious. You are a friend of Zhenla. Zhenla will definitely worship your portrait in the future." Damn it! Was he cursing me? Zhang Feng didn't want to lose his temper. For the sake of Jin Inu, he coughed and said, "There's no need for that. We hit it off so well. Let me talk about something else. Zhenla was not suitable for growing food. It's better not to waste food and labor. If you bring real preserved seafood and precious fruits to Chang'an City and offer them to King Tang, you can just sit back and enjoy the rest of your life." Zhang Feng's words were all over the place. Shiva and the other two were so excited that they screamed. Then may I ask, sir, how can our fruits be transported here after such a long journey? Moreover, we have tried before. It is very difficult to transport aquatic products and fruits here. Along the way, we have to go through layers of screening. We can't be careless. Basically, we can't pass Jiangnan. Everything stinks. This was a difficult problem. But, how could this stump Master Zhang? He waved his hand and said, I was wondering what kind of problem it was. So it's just this trivial matter? I'll tell you. Have you heard about the water wheel that the Tang dynasty used to support Tubo? As long as you can please His Majesty, he will reward you with 100 water wheels. Then, you can transport fruits and aquatic products to Chang, and as I said. And those aquatic products are still alive and kicking. Really? Jinla is at least tens of thousands of miles away from Chang'an. What kind of thing can transport those things here? Everyone in the world knew about the water wheel. How could they not know? But that thing was a drought-resistant thing. How could it be used here? Zhang Feng rubbed his hands slyly. Shiva immediately knew what was going on. He hurriedly undid an emerald belt from his waist and handed it to Zhang Feng reluctantly. He said with a smile, Master Zhang, this belt. Before Shiva could tell him the origin of the belt, Zhang Feng exclaimed, good stuff. Then, the belt appeared on Zhang Feng's waist. Where did this thing come from? Zhang Feng was too lazy to ask, and he was too lazy to listen. Wasn't this a whole piece of emerald that was hollowed out and carved out? Although it looked good, it was a waste of God's gift if it was on you. He put away the belt. At this time, Zhang Feng said seriously, Prince Shiva, don't take this thing out again. I, Zhang Feng, don't care about such vulgar things. However, this emerald is good stuff. I like it very much. Without waiting for Shiva to speak, Zhang Feng also knew that it was time. Why did this grandson have a small warehouse on him? The table was full of things. How could he take them out from his body? Cough, cough, listen carefully. This water wheel was invented by me. What? Is what Master Zhang said true? Shiva exploded. He knew that this thing was very precious. They had never even seen the real thing. But now, in Chang'an city of the Tang dynasty, someone in a small tavern in the city said that he made this thing? If someone else had said that, Shiva would definitely have chuckled and spat in his heart. But after seeing Zhang Feng's wine pot and reclining chair, and then hearing Zhang Feng's mysterious business lecture, Shiva suddenly felt that he had hit the jackpot today. He had met a god. Chapter 147. Li Shimon's eyelids twitched. He forcibly suppressed the urge to ask Zhang Feng how to solve the predicament in Chang'an city and his father's conflict. He narrowed his eyes and asked, what kind of deal is so mysterious? Is it related to Zhenla? Oh. As expected of Lao Li. His brain was better than Old Wei and Lai Sun's. I guessed it from those fools. Li Shimon curled his lips. Even a fool could guess it, okay? However, Zhang Feng's words were very effective on him. It was very strange. There was no shortage of flatterers in the court, but Li Shimon was annoyed when he saw them. He wanted to kill them, but he was looking forward to Zhang Feng's praise. And it was the kind of praise that was full of sarcasm. This made Li Shimin very happy. He cupped his hands and personally took a jar of wine from the counter. Without waiting for Zhang Feng's instructions, he opened the mud seal and drank from the jar. What kind of friendship do we have? Although we have never been on the battlefield. But it can be considered a friendship of life and death. Everything that I have now is all because of your guidance. Just tell me. What kind of deal? I've been waiting for you, Lao Li. Zhang Feng pulled Li Shimin to sit beside him. He hooked his arm around Li Shimin's neck and said, I'll tell you. Do you know why Zhen La's people were like that just now? Why? Oh right, I forgot. How did you manage to trick them into giving you something so precious? Trick? Zhang Feng glanced at Li Shimin and immediately showed a look of disdain. Do you think I, Zhang Feng, relied on trickery? I relied on my own ability, okay? But, this stupid prince is really a king rich idiot. Look. TSK. He took out the jade pendant onto La's neck and shook it, making Li Shimin want to snatch it. This is the filial piety money I gave them when I pointed them out. I earned it with my own ability. Then tell me, how did you point them out? Li Shimin was interested and forgot many of his troubles. It seemed that only in this small tavern could he really show his true nature. Do you know what Zhen La's specialty is? Zhang Feng asked mysteriously. Li Shimin was really confused. What did Zhen La produce? Every year, the tributes were basically ordinary goods. In that place, people were so poor that they couldn't even afford to wear pants. What else could they offer? But seeing Zhang Feng's expression, Li Shimin couldn't help but become excited. Did you find something new? Yes. Let me ask you, old Li, have you ever heard of relying on the mountain to live off the mountain and the water to live off the water? I've heard of it. And this matter has been taught by the Han people for generations. Li Shimin was sure. Alas. Zhang Feng sighed. Do you know that idiot Zhen La doesn't even know this? Don't you think it's infuriating? Born in a treasure mountain, but starved to madness. Chapter 149. Li Shimin was very shocked. Such a brilliant plan. This was really a plan to eradicate the family. This plan might be carried out for several generations or even dozens of generations. But in his hands, he was the person at the helm of this plan. He controlled the future of this plan. This was even more exciting for his dream of a golden age where all countries would pay homage to him. Although he knew that he would not live until then. But at this time, he could imagine the expressions of those foreigners who would kneel in front of his tomb and tell him about his deeds thousands of years later when all countries came to pay homage to him. Li Shimin could not help but laugh at his fantasy of a golden age. And Zhang Feng did not disturb him. He knew that Lao Li was enlightened. This was a kind of sublimation. It was also a part of his plan. The Great Tang needed merchants like this. These honest merchants lacked the scheming and deceit of the later generations, only a patriotism. This was rare and commendable. He had simply helped the lost find the lighthouse in their hearts at the right time. Hey! Lao Li, are you thinking about the future? Zhang Feng stared at Li Shimin and asked with a smile. Li Shimin's dream was shattered. Not only did he not blame Zhang Feng, but there were also traces of tears in his eyes. Yes. I see the future, no. 10 years later, the golden age of the Tang dynasty. That is what we want to see the most. When we go to every corner of the world, we only need to show the name of the Tang dynasty, and the whole world will bow down to us. What a glory this is. We are no longer the four-legged sheep that others say, and no longer the target that anyone can bully. They can only carve 2 words in their bones. The Tang Dynasty. But, what a pity. There are too few people in the Tang Dynasty who can have such awareness. Li Shimin shook his head. He abruptly picked up the wine jug and poured it over his head to hide the tears at the corners of his eyes. That's quite a lot. Zhang Feng patted Li Shimin's shoulder and said, "Let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, heavenly lightning struck a forest, and a huge fire burned in the forest for more than 100 days. There were flames everywhere in the air, just like the stars in the sky. Among them, one of the sparks was the size of a fingernail at first, but it drifted and drifted, and in the end, it was only the size of a needle tip that was about to extinguish. When he was about to die out, he landed on a withered grassland. Then, he slowly used the remaining heat of his ashes to ignite the entire grassland." Li Shimin listened attentively. It was as if he was the spark in front of him. Li Shimin cried out in surprise when he heard that spark had used its last bit of heat to ignite the entire grassland. And then? Zhang Feng glanced at Li Shimin and patted him on the shoulder. After that, the grassland burned for an entire year.